I didn't realize
All right,
there's different
good.
metals. There's aluminum.
Call this meeting to order, and we will start with the pledge to the flag. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Scott.
Here.
Bedroom. Singlets.
Here.
McGee.
Here.
Maggie.
Here.
Lenny.
Here.
Humble.
Here.
We have not heard from Mr. Nedra, so I assume he's stuck in traffic or some such. Correspondence. You'll note we've got a couple of additional items of correspondence that came in. One from Donna Bethel saying thank you for the pathway. One from Mr. Crucera regarding his ditch. I would entertain a motion to receive and file the correspondence and to refer the letter from Mr. Crucera to the administrative committee because we are going to meet to discuss his ditch situation. Motion Nagy, do I have a second?
A second.
Second Scott. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. And there indeed is Mr. Nedra. Oh, okay. Additions to business, do we have?
I do not have any additions to business.
All right. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved. Second.
Motion Sinkowitz, second Nagy, discussion?
I have a question or maybe a suggestion that unless there is someone has, regarding the purchase of the police vehicle and the accompanying equipment, could we roll that into, unless there's an exception, into one motion versus, I think it's a half dozen?
Let's deal with that when we get there.
Okay.
It's gonna appear as these items on the agenda, but when we get to that item, we can do a single motion for
Very good.
the vehicle.
Thank you.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. First call to the public, and opportunities for citizens to address the council on agenda items. Yes, sir. Oh, let's see if we can get you to a microphone, either the portable one or up here.
Right here, there.
Tom Mersch, 265 Oak Island. I'd like to open up to the public under Oak Island. And the second issue is the lily pads in the lake. Very few of you probably remember back in the 60s and 70s, when this lake was inundated with lily pads. If we don't do something about this, the lake is going to be the same way as it was back in the 60s and 70s in a very short order. Also, the weed harvester. We spent, what, $250,000 for a weed harvester, and it's been out, how many hours? 10 hours total? The whole summer? I don't think it's...
Considerably more hours than that.
It's not very many more hours, 'cause I sit there and watch it, and it sits there day after day without being run. And I know that you're saying you're going to use chemicals instead of the weed harvester, except for certain instances. But in front of that island, next year, we're going to have lily pads probably 50 feet wide. All the strings are coming up all the way across the front of that island. You look over by the dam, the lily pads have come up. You look over off of Ethel Court, back in the bays there. The lily pads are just starting to take over, especially in the areas where there's not any wake or anything. So, thank you.
All right. One quick question. Always council's, pleasure whether to open or not when we get to the Oak Island one. But was there anything specific regarding the Oak Island item that you wanted to address?
Yes, I'd like to, I can discuss it now if you want, but I think it should, rather than have everybody go through it, we don't do that when it comes up.
Okay, I think probably council will be amenable to opening up that discussion. All right, thanks. Anybody else first call? Seeing none, I will close the first call to the public. I'll open us up to candidates for office. We do indeed have an election coming up soon, and I believe I see our state representative, Clint Kesto, right back there. So he will be appearing on our ballot.
Thank you. Thanks, Jim.
Oh, let's get you a microphone, too.
All right.
One of these. For the vast internet audience at home.
Hopefully they still have their internet connection today after the storms. I'm Clint Kesto. I'm the current state representative. As the president's indicated, there is an election coming up, November 4th. I will be on the ballot. I look forward to serving you again for a second term. I've worked closely with the board in terms of what we're doing in Lansing and how we can connect it to what's going on in the village. I certainly appreciate everything you guys are doing in terms of maintaining a solid budget and staying within your means and really being creative with everything you're doing. John, you and I have talked with the DEQ in terms of Wolverine Lake. Of course, we've spoken about the roads, the road issues, and just want to say I appreciate what you're doing, and I look forward to continuing that relationship in a second term. So if anyone ever has any questions, I also do host coffee hours the third Monday of every month, 7 a.m. at Miracle Coffee, 14 and M5, 12 o'clock, 12 to 1 at Wixom Road at the Dunkin' Donuts between Grand River and 96, and then again at 6 p.m. at Coffee Time on Welch Road and Maple, and the third Friday of every month I'm at the Leo's Coney Island on Pontiac Trail in Haggerty. Feel free to stop in and discuss any issues. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. And Representative Kesto has been very active and involved in a lot of village issues, so I appreciate that. Any other candidates? I believe we have one for our very own council.
My name is Mark Duff, and I'm running for village council. I just like an opportunity to get more involved in the local rules and regulations and things like that. I've lived here since '09. I'm married, I have 2 kids. I feel that being involved in local government is very important, and look forward to having that opportunity. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Mark while he's here? All right, thanks. Anybody else? Seeing none, move on to the next item, approval of the consent agenda. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion Kuznicki, second Cumbo, to approve the consent agenda as presented. Further discussion? Roll call vote.
Nedrow.
Yes.
Sinkwitz.
Yes.
McGee.
Yes.
Nagy.
Yes.
Kuznicki.
Yes.
Humble.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Thank you. That brings us to item 13A, reports and recommendations from Engineer Powell. And Powell is not here, but Michelle is here. Some regard that as an upgrade.
Yes, Council, thank you very much. The only item that Powell Engineering has before Council this month was this last month we went out for bids for the extension of the pathway in the village of Wolverine Lake. Unfortunately, because the RCOC and many other municipalities have had such road issues this year, many of our paving crews are very busy on the job. So even though we did have 3 contractors pick up packets, only one of them actually submitted a bid. It was Sartor Paving. We have worked with Sartor in the past. They have always done a very good job for us in the past. But because we only had 1 bid, we did compare them to what Cadillac's bid for the same work was. And it came in at less than half with JJM doing the preparation. So in all, it was a very good, very smart move of council to go ahead and rebid that work. And after going through, Cadillac Asphalt's bid was $120,284. The same work with JJM and HG Sartor was $64,500. Because of that extreme difference in price, we feel very comfortable with their quote. It was well within reason and what we would have liked to see. And we would recommend council move forward with HJ Sartor and JJM and do the project with a set budget of $65,000 in case of any overage.
All right. Thank you. Do I hear a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Motion Sinkwitz, second Kaznicki. Discussion, I did want to point out one item here, which is that if we do decide to go ahead with that little bit of paving up on Oak Island, that would be included in the scope of this work. It's fairly small in the overall, but it would be done as part of that bid that we are awarding now. But it's a unit price bid, so whether it goes in or goes out doesn't really affect this.
What paving is that? You mean that little cul-de-sac?
Yeah, the little turn in Oak Island.
Something I think that should be looked at and addressed with this. If anybody's been over there to the Vita Trail and the new exercise, I think we need a path from the trail or the parking lot directly to the exercise unit. We have a trail that goes around, but there is no path, so if somebody, I don't know, like maybe somebody, obviously maybe with a wheelchair wouldn't be there, but if somebody had a cart or was pushing a child or something, you'd have to go over all that bumpy grass, and it's only about 30 feet. And we already have the asphalt material, the crushed asphalt there. Does everybody understand what I mean? Yeah. I think it would be a good idea. So if you're on your bike or if you're walking or whatever, at least whichever way is the most logical, either from the parking lot or across from one path to the other. But I think it would be nice to have a path that takes you to, kind of inviting to the exercise unit. And I don't think it would be much.
Yeah, I think that would be a pretty small increase in scope work. That had never occurred to me just because I'd walked across the grass and hadn't thought about it, but I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a good
I think it's a
idea
good
too.
idea.
Yeah, I think it is.
Occasionally, I get some. And a lot of them go by the wayside. But anyway.
Could that be added at the lineal foot price or ton price, Michelle?
Well,
Or something like that, or do we have to add it on? How would we go about doing it?
it would be, I think, if we had that work done and the path was prepared in time for them to do this paving, they would just roll that in as part of the
Okay.
overall
Yeah.
paving that they're doing. What
It's
we would
part of
need
the
to do.
path, so,
Right.
you know, it's not
Yeah.
like we're, doing something different.
What we would need to do, though, is have another quick discussion, we can have it while we're still on items for the engineer, about actually getting that little bit of pathway built
Yeah.
by JJM, so.
Yeah, and the material's convenient, so, I mean, it still has to be done, but it's not like, we're starting from scratch, so,
Yeah.
Right.
okay.
And the
So-
HG Sarter is the per ton, $75 per
Right.
ton of asphalt, so I don't see where that would be a
If we
problem.
use an extra ton, then it's a.
It's a done issue.
So wait, before we go on too far, so Michelle, correct me if I misspoke it with any of that.
Nope, it is a unit price bid. Anything we add would be just billed as an extra unit price, and I think that's a wonderful idea, and I don't see any reason the HG Sarter couldn't do that.
Okay.
Michelle,
John, wait, let me go to John first and then to you, Pat.
I was just going to make a general comment, maybe for those that are in the audience. Isn't it fair that we should indicate that this is really a two-part bid in the sense that Sarter did in fact prep all of that particular pathway to included in this price? Is that not correct?
No.
That's a-
JJM did all the
Yeah,
prep
okay.
work. They've
I
been
wanted to make sure that was brought up.
doing all the millings from the old pathway, putting it all down, putting all the base. What Sartor would really be doing is just
Just the
paving it,
asphalt.
just the asphalt.
But that price for $64,500 is both of those, correct?
Yes, that is both
Okay.
of them.
All right.
Right, Sartor's
It's
estimate for
not
the
just
actual.
the asphalting, it's
The
the
whole-
combination of the whole pathway.
That
And
was my
sometimes that's
understanding.
lost
Yeah.
when the audience is out there. Let's say,
Yeah.
look at our notes.
So to be clear, Sartor's expected amount for the asphalt would be about 48,000. We'll approve over that in case there are overages or whatever. JJM, 16,500 for the actual pathway prep. Total cost of that project, $64,500 is rebid. Original quote as part of the Cadillac asphalt project, $120,284. Pat?
What kind of time frame are we talking about if we approve it tonight to get the work started and get it completed? I presume before the asphalt season runs out?
I assume that their goal was to have it done before asphalt season in November, mid-November.
Yes, I mean, if we do it, I would think the goal was,
Yeah,
I
it's
think, the
gotta- it's gotta be
prepping was
this
to get
year.
it done this year. Okay.
The prepping for the pathway should be done by end of next week.
He's making progress.
Yes, down by Tampa.
Yeah, So after that, we'll have
Done a nice job so far.
bridge to do down there. The pathway's already getting quite a bit of use even
Mhm.
without paving on it.
Yeah, seen people riding their bikes on it already, too.
Bridge to use, paving, and I think that's about it for that. Any further discussion on this
On this item.
item?
I just had a question asked of me about 2 or 3 days ago about the pathway, and that is whether during the winter it will be cleared, and my answer was, it will not be. And I don't know if we need to explain the reasoning behind that, but
So, let's
As-
hold that
as of
discussion.
now, John.
I would.
As of now.
As of
But I
now.
would like to have a little bit of discussion
I
about that,
think it's
because that is a
important.
point that I've also been giving some thought to
Yeah.
in recent days. and
as we
talked to a few
continue
people
to
about.
expand it, I guess that question is coming up more and more, so.
So let's stick with asphalt for now, then we'll
You
go
got
back
it.
and let's talk about, while we're still on items for the engineer, let's talk about small pathway over to the equipment and clearing. Anything else on the actual asphalt contract? Let's get a roll call vote.
Singlets?
Sir?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
Maggie?
Yes.
Bezecki?
Yes.
Humble?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Medrow?
Yes.
Mr. President, I thought we were gonna try to increase that a little bit to try to, I mean, maybe not to exceed, over above the 64.5, you mentioned that just a few minutes ago.
Yeah, I think
But
that.
it's a unit price.
It's a unit price, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, we approved the
Okay.
unit price, so.
Okay.
So let's go,
I thought the motion was for 65,000.
it was not to
It's a
exceed.
unit price, yeah.
It's a unit price, but not to exceed 65,000. So
Correct.
Okay.
if they go way, way, way up, then.
That's the
then-
motion, though, 65, right?
Right, so at 75 per ton, not to exceed 65,000. So let's go back to small pathway from the parking lot over. I think to do that, we would probably have to, negotiate quickly with JJM, have them come back.
I'm sure that we can do that. I mean, he's not finished with the other area, so he
Uh,
could give us a price for that.
Yeah, would you need, obviously, I want us to have a motion tonight to do something there. Do you need an actual price in it or a?
Let's have a not to exceed.
and-
I don't have an actual price because I didn't know we were gonna talk about this. so-
Well, that's what I mean, a not to exceed, what do we think, like $1,000?
I put down 2.
2,000?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll cover
I would
it.
say 2,000 as well, based on his unit price, just want to make sure that you have enough in there, and
Okay.
I'm sure he'll.
Wait, are we talking about JJM or?
JJM,
Okay,
yes,
because
for
he has to
the-
cut that pathway
Yeah, he has
in
to
and
cut
then
the
he has to-
pathway and do, okay.
Right.
So do I have a motion to create an additional pathway from the parking lot to the exercise equipment, price not to exceed $2,000?
So moved.
Motion Sinkowitz.
Second.
Second Nagy, further discussion?
Well, that's talking just
Just
JJM.
JJM. And to be clear, I don't think I stated that motion quite as clearly as I should have. A motion for the administrator to negotiate with JJM to
Right.
create the underlaying of a of a pathway from the parking lot to the exercise area
Correct.
at a cost not to exceed
See,
$2,000.
Then do we have to vote on the?
Nope, because that would just be part of the unit cost price for that work.
Okay.
I'd just like to ask a question. Ed, were you talking about from the parking lot to the
Or from the
exercise
pathway?
area, or from the
I-
pathway,
it
or
does-
both?
I don't really matter, I mean, because the parking lot is not attached to the pathway.
And neither is the other part
Right.
of the path.
So I would think that if, you almost need to connect the two together, but I would think probably from the parking lot would make most sense.
I agree.
I'll check it out and see.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's another, it's gonna be a minimal cost. We got the material there, the equipment's there, and everything's by the ton. I don't think you necessarily have to have them from the trail, but I would think definitely from the parking lot would be sufficient. And if you were on your bike, you would only have to go over maybe 10 or 15 feet of grass to get on there. But I was thinking more of the people that are walking, because they walk down that.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good idea, and it makes it more accessible.
I agree. It's welcoming, it's aesthetically, it fits, it makes a lot of sense.
Further discussion on that motion? Roll call vote.
McGee?
Yes.
Maggie?
Yes.
Bezecki?
Yes.
Humble?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Medrow?
Yes.
Singlets?
Yes.
Thank you, council. Last item on the pathway issues that came up in discussion. Clearing those things during the winter. We have traditionally not cleared pathways during the winter. It's certainly an additional cost, a considerable, potentially additional cost.
Is this on the agenda? Or is this,
This came up as part of our discussion of the pathway, so I'm including it as discussions with engineer, but I don't want us to go into a long
because I think this
discussion.
is something that the residents would want to be aware of what was going on.
Right, well, right now.
Decision-making.
Right now, nothing's going on.
Yeah,
Okay.
nothing.
I just want to bring this
Just
back as
wanted
a
to
discussion
clarify,
point,
yeah.
to clarify. Right now, we don't do any clearing of those pathways. We don't do a little bit down Glengarry. Most of the bikeways we've done have been part of the roadway itself, so it's been easy enough to keep them clear. Clearing pathways would require new equipment for DPW, additional hours for DPW. There'd be a cost involved. I don't know offhand what that cost would be. It's not small, and it would be an additional effort during paving, when they do paving. So I would think it would take a good deal of investigation before we would have a proposal to do it, if we wanted to do it.
Well, and I think I was just bringing it into the discussion, since we were A, on pathways, and B, it was a question raised
Yeah.
by a citizen, and that's what we're here to do. So, yes, I think we can put it off into the future, but it is something that was raised as I was in conversation, and a viable question.
Well,
And I
and-
indicated that, as far as I knew, we don't clear it for a number of reasons,
And
in addition to cost.
the point of those pathways is to get people off the road. If we are
Right.
Michigan, there is snow for a good chunk of the time.
Sure.
And the roads are particularly crowded and bad when we've got snow. So I think it's worth discussing.
It's worth discussing, but I think it might be a losing battle with the fact that, just like you said, with plowing the roads, and the roads are gonna throw right on the pathway. And it's like trying to play catch-up. It might be a little bit difficult. Plus, I don't know about the cross-country skiers. I don't know how many are in the village, but they might prefer snow on the pathway to get down Glengarry, okay?
Well, I think from the walker's standpoint, our friends across the road, they do clear the pathways in that park.
Do they?
So maybe that's why that question came along.
I-
But we can move on.
Without going into great detail, if you build a path so people can get from point A to point B, it should be 365 days out of the year.
Mhm.
Now, the Vita Trail and the other paths, that's different. But the one that goes down here and the one that goes up there should be done.
Yeah.
And as far as equipment, I can't see why we don't have the equipment. You can go down there with a plow truck, but our small machine has a brush on the front or a blade.
Yeah, I think you're probably talking about a small tractor.
Yeah, it could push that. And, it would be, common sense is gonna tell anybody that, we get 2 feet of snow, that's not gonna be the first thing we're gonna do, but look at all I heard, how dangerous that Shankin on South Commerce was. Oh my God, somebody's gonna get killed, we gotta do it. We built something there that you could land an airplane on, and yet nobody can use it in the winter. That doesn't make any common sense.
It's not this past winter, but the winter before, somebody, I don't know who, came down and he kept it fairly clean. I don't know if it was a
That
Wall
was a
Lake
resident.
resident or whatever,
It
but
was a
somebody
resident.
did it.
Anyway,
The lake.
for another time.
I mean, I would send a motion to send that one to admin too, to do some investigation, and come back to council with costs and a proposal.
I
I'll
agree
make
with
that,
that.
will you?
Yeah. You want me to make that motion formally?
I'll take that motion. So motion Scott,
I will
second
second
Cumbo.
it,
Further discussion. And I believe, did you say, Jennifer?
It's also a liability issue that you'll need to look at, because if I recall, I don't remember how many years ago, I don't have the information in front of me, but your insurance carrier had an exception for your pathways. They generally don't like the pathways plowed for liability purposes. And so you need to explore with your insurance
That's a
carrier
good point.
that provision. You might need special coverage to do that.
Certainly some of our surrounding communities do that, so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's impossible, but you definitely need to look at that issue.
I think one of my major concerns would be the school.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because once they get used to using it, and they are getting used to using it, I see the kids on it now. Even in the wintertime, they didn't expect to use it, and it was not clear they would use the roads, so that would increase.
Yep.
Liability either way, actually.
Okay. Okay. Further discussion on that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, recommendation for Park and Rec Board. Park and Rec recommends Sigmund Jamison to the board for term expiring December 31st, 2014. Pam, you want to do the introduction?
Sure, I'd be glad to. I would like to introduce Sig Jamison as a new member to our board. He was very helpful at the most recent corn roast that we had last Saturday, and I think he's a real good fit for the board. He's willing to get in there, help us out, and help us with our activities, and Sig.
All right. Questions for council?
I trust that you'll renew after December 31st of this year.
A really short term.
Yeah.
You'll like Snacks with Santa. It's really good.
I can vouch that he cooks a heck of a bratwurst. I also saw on your application you mentioned about starting up a Cars and Coffee event, and I don't know if you're aware of it, but the Lingenfelter in Wixom does a Cars and Coffee now. They started it up last year.
Okay.
So it's a really cool event. Definitely worth going to check out if you like your Cars and Coffee on a Saturday morning.
Absolutely. Yeah, check it out.
Do I have a motion?
Make that motion to approve
Sig Jamison.
Sig Jamison to the Parks and Rec Board to term expiring December 31st of 2014.
I'll second.
Motion Nagy, second Kaznecki. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Come on up and get sworn in.
First, I'd like to say you're already a movie star. Before you get sworn in, you're on the front of the spinal column today.
Oh, wow.
So you can take that.
Sign it for it.
So usually I ask them to sign. This will be your autograph.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state,
and the Constitution of this state,
and that I will faithfully perform the duties
and I will faithfully perform the duties
of Park and Recreation Board member
of Park and Recreation Board member
in and for the Village of Wolverine Lake,
in and for the Village of Wolverine Lake,
County of Oakland,
County of Oakland,
State of Michigan,
State of Michigan,
according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
according to the best of my abilities, so help me God. No
I
problem.
introduce myself.
Congratulations.
But when I saw your picture in the paper today, I knew you were a movie star. Right there. Did you want to introduce your wife?
Sure.
He's got his wife here.
Yep, so you want to introduce your wife?
Jennifer Jameson. We both live over on
Hello.
565 Laguna Court.
Great.
Congratulations.
Welcome aboard.
Congratulations.
She can help out anytime. Thank you.
Yeah, you'll get dragged into
You'll
it.
get there.
All right, brings us to our request to purchase from Captain Ellsworth. We have 7 items total, 1 of them the guns, 6 of them dealing with the vehicle. So let's start with the gun.
Good evening, council.
Let's start with the purchase of 10 Glock Model 22 Generation 4 pistols from Kiesler's Police Supply. I was very pleased, actually, we had budgeted for $6,000 for this purchase, thinking that they're going to be close to $600 a piece by the time we included all the extra magazines and night sights. They came back with a quote, taking in our used Glock 22s, the older ones from they're actually a 2006 model. We can get all 10 of those at a total cost of $1,605 after the trade-in, plus shipping. I think it's a $65 shipping, which is almost unbelievable. I mean, for the amount of money that we're going to get these pistols for. The current ones are still reliable. However, they are getting aged, and when we wear them every day, they get worn. We want to make sure we have the, it's not the latest and greatest, but they're good, rugged handguns, they're going to last us. So I figured at this price, and now's the time to purchase them.
All right.
I'd like to make a motion based on the information presented here by our chief of police to purchase the 10 Glock Model 22s, Model 22 at a cost of $1,605.
Second that one.
Motion Sinkowitz, second Nagy. Further discussion? Yeah, that was a great price. Seeing no further discussion, roll call vote.
Nagy?
Yes.
Kaznecki?
Yes.
Humboldt?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Redrow?
Yes.
Sinkwitz?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes. Well, the budget guessing game gives and the budget guessing game takes away.
Yes, it does.
Let's get to the truck.
All right, I received bids from the 2015 Tahoe patrol vehicles. They went up significantly. I think we had budgeted $28,500 for a Tahoe. When I got the bids, I had the sticker shock this year, even though it's still a significant savings, cost savings, compared to one we could buy on the street at about $55,000. The two-wheel drive Tahoe was at $29,461, and the four-wheel drive was $31,813. At first, I had actually given Sharon the paperwork for the two-wheel drive because of the price. After thinking about it a little bit further, and I went back and I did some research on the resale value along with the maintenance costs and the makeup difference over the life of the vehicle. The 2014 Tahoe that we have has got about almost 25,000 miles on it. The expense to that vehicle, the cost to maintain that vehicle over the last year has been zero. We have not paid for any oil changes, any tires. Windshield wipers have been replaced. Everything that needed to be touched up on that vehicle or any maintenance done on it is picked up by General Motors for the first 2 years. And that really is a huge cost savings for us when it comes down to vehicle maintenance. We take it over to Marty Feldman and they do everything right there for us. After looking at that, again, with the two-wheel drive compared to the four-wheel drive, just the difference in tires for the two-wheel drive to replace those is $1,127 because they do not give us the state price on those particular tires. But for the four-wheel drive, they do, and it's $663 for the four tires for the four-wheel drive. So over the life of the vehicle, I think we're going to more than make up for the increased amount to go with the four-wheel drive. It's heavy dutier, and it seems to, they're much more durable, I guess. The four-wheel drive does not require the tires to be speed rated, and so this also makes it a lot cheaper. And I'm going to ask for an increase in the capital outlay budget from $28,500 to $32,000 to meet the cost of a four-wheel drive vehicle.
To be honest, having budgeted at the two-wheel drive vehicle, I'd been thinking about that one for a while, and I thought, we're in Michigan, it's an emergency vehicle. We got 97 inches of snow last winter. I'm more than happy to go with the four-wheel drive. That's my own personal opinion. Other questions about the vehicle, and then let's get down everything, and let's get it all in one motion when we get to the end.
Captain, are we going to get any kind of trade-in? Are we trading one of the Dodges or scrapping one of the Dodges, or how are you working this?
Actually, we are still using a 2004 Ford.
Yeah.
That one's going to go this year. And we will actually take one of the Dodges out of rotation, and that will be used as a detective car and also the ordnance vehicle. And
We got to do that, Sharon, like a public, sealed bid to sell that?
Yes.
Yeah, we always do.
We can make it, we
And-
cover some money out.
Yeah, and for that car, it's going to be very small because it's got 100,000 plus on it, and it's, again, that car is 10 years old. We try to keep them as long as we can, and I think we did a pretty good job with that one, but it's time.
Maybe we use it for demolition derby or something.
You could use that for a demolition. That's a tough car.
That would
heavy car.
actually be an excellent destiny for that car.
Because that car has been, through a lot.
Chief, the vehicle you're gonna replace, how many miles is on that? Do you know approximately?
The one we're taking out of
Yeah.
service and using it as the ordinance and detective car, that currently has close to 80,000 miles on it. So it's not like, we're not getting I mean, we're obviously gaining a lot, but we use these vehicles, we average about 25,000 miles a year. A problem we've had is with these Dodge Chargers, they've been down a lot. In the last month, I replaced an engine block. So, and that one had 30, not even quite 30,000 miles on it. We already replaced the
Chevys
engine.
forever.
I'll leave that up to the council.
Certainly in terms of available police configurable vehicles right
And,
now.
and durability and room,
done
yes.
better.
I'm very pleased with the Tahoe, the current Tahoe we have, as well the officers are, and they're looking forward to being able to have a little more room and some of the new additional equipment we're talking about.
Those Chargers look great, but that back seat is
Yes, indeed.
extremely tight. Further discussion on the vehicle choice. Okay, let's go down the list of.
Okay, Synergy Wireless is our build installer. They do all our police equipment. They do a really good job. We've tried other places. I've not been very pleased. Myself and Joe George have done this over the last 20 years to where we are very happy with the vehicles and how we get them back from Synergy Wireless. And they are in Troy. However, they do an awful lot for us by coming out, picking up our vehicles, dropping them off, etc., and doing the little fixes and then they don't charge us. So, and that's 48, 90, 78, and that's to take our old car, all the equipment off the old car, put in the new equipment for the new car.
Chief, are you saying that the equipment in the old car is no longer gonna be used?
For the most part, yes. The difference is, with this equipment, I believe we're still going to be able to get some resale value out of it, because Chrysler is not going to, the cage and things for that vehicle is not going to fit in the Chevy, because of the different configurations of the body styles. However, Dodge Chargers are still being used and still being purchased by other departments, and they could use some of that equipment. Now, our overheads and our emergency lights, siren driver, those things are going to be reused. But there are going to be some additional lights because of the height of the Tahoe, as well as we have a front partition and a back partition in the back seat, because now we have an access in the back seat where we wouldn't have before with the vehicles. And then we also have
Yeah, one's the storage and one's.
one's storage and one's for the
That guy.
passenger. Yep.
No, what I was getting at, though, is maybe you answered the question, I missed it. With Synergy, the current wireless, I assume the radio that you have in there, that one is not going to be recycled into the new vehicle.
Let me clarify a little bit. They have to be taken out of the existing vehicle
Right.
and put in. I think the actual breakdown, and you might have, I don't know if you have it in front of you, it was like $1,900 in actual labor. The rest of it was different parts for the push bar for the Tahoe, the partitions, both front and back, the computer stand, as well as lights, some additional lights that have to be
Okay.
purchased on there. So that's where that price comes from.
Yeah, it's $2,150 in labor, and then the rest is some very specific items, the most expensive
Okay.
which are
I see.
the long console, the
I knew
partition,
that
a
the
couple
cages
others.
and stuff
Yeah.
would never fit because they're like night and day vehicles.
Yeah, the radios and things, like I say, once they're removed from the other vehicle, they will be reinstalled in a new Tahoe. But
Okay.
even then, the brackets are going to have to be retrofitted and things of
Yep.
that nature. And then moving down the Dell laptop, the computer for the new police vehicle, we are upgrading our computers as we replace the vehicles. After this year, we'll have one more we have to replace, and that comes in at $27,9268. That comes directly from Dell. Oakland County has an open bid purchase price with them, It comes programmed with all the information that we need on those computers, so they plug them in, then we take them up to Oakland County, and they just program them, and so it has everything we
So
need.
that cost includes all the software?
Yeah, it includes everything, yep. And the docking station that goes along with it, which is invaluable. The new MPB-3 radar unit for the police vehicle at $22.52. That replaces the one that's currently in that vehicle that was bought prior to my arrival in '97. So it's a little bit outdated, and then buttons are falling off and different things. So we really do need to upgrade that one. And the new in-car camera, those cameras are starting to go. I still think we can get some trade-in value out of that. I think they said they'd give us $500 for a trade-in value. It beats a poking eye with a sharp stick. Otherwise, they're going to sit there.
Yeah, the other one's pretty old, isn't it?
They're 8 years old. I think they might be 8 or 9 years old now. But the new ones are really, really high quality and really, really nice. And they're comparative. Most in-car cameras are right around $5,000, and these guys have been really good to us. The graphics installed on a police vehicle, I didn't get a specific quote. Last year's quote for that was $1,300. I talked to Mr. Rupp, and he's assured me it won't be over that. So I didn't get an exact quote on that. He didn't have time by the time I got to him, so not to exceed $1,300.
Okay, let me see if we've got questions on any of those items.
I don't have questions about the items. I have a question about, everything the request, the purchases are against budgeted amounts with the exception of the overage on the vehicle.
The original budget round was for $45,000 for everything involved with the car. This will exceed it. If we assume that graphics number is $1,300, we'll be over that figure by about $2,900.
So, looking over your shoulder, $47,868.46 is the total.
What's the total
We
number?
budgeted $47,868.46. We budgeted $45,000.
You know, we also got to make up some of the costs, at least from the police department budget, for the savings on the pistols also. So, I mean, it's in a different pickle jar, but it's still.
Different jar in the budget, but yeah, as an overall with the two items,
Yeah.
we came in expecting 51,000. We're coming out paying about 49,000.
Yeah.
It was more just a procedural, logistical question I had. Do we have to amend the budget prior to making this motion?
You could amend it coincidental with the motion. We've been doing this a little bit more lately, and it's a good thing. If part of the motion says, and to increase the budget to, let's say, $48,000 to make it round figures, that would be in order.
All right, thank you, Mayor.
But we wouldn't want to do a budget amendment the other way because, not to give you guys an accounting lesson here, but I have to show the gross expense as capital outlay, and then there'll be an offset on the revenue side for the,
Right.
essentially the discount that we're getting as a result of the trade.
And also, the other question, like we've used this discussion, like with bicycles we get and so on and so forth. You have to put them up for auction or whatever. I mean, it's kind of a outdated and convoluted way to sell things that we don't longer need. Is that same procedure we have to go through with selling used radar equipment, et cetera, or no? Is there a more expedient way to?
There is a much more expedient way to do it. However, we do it through the trade-in. That kind of gives us a handoff and gives us a little more credit
All right.
to our sales. Otherwise, there's a lot of hoops you have to jump through.
Yeah.
And as you know, when we try to do them with our bikes, for example, we end up losing about $300 because we have to pay somebody to come and do an auction. And we raised $35 for all the bikes that we had, and
Right.
we go backwards, so.
So we're doing that through the trade-in versus
Correct.
an auction. Very good, thank you.
Further question on the vehicle? In that case, I would entertain a motion to purchase the 2015 Chevrolet Tahoe four-wheel drive patrol vehicle and associated equipment at a cost not to exceed $48,000 total and to amend the budget accordingly.
Exactly.
I hear that motion from Cumbo.
I'll make it, yeah.
Second, Nagy. Further discussion?
Yes, Sharon, do you have any comments on this?
Nope.
Okay.
Seeing no further discussion, roll call vote.
Kesnek?
Yes.
Cumbo?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Medrow?
Yes.
Sigley?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
Yes.
Council?
righty. Yep, brings us to ACS Bill. We've got Dave Donnelly. How are we doing? Let's get that microphone down here.
I think we're doing quite well. They're ahead of the game, of course, and they're ahead of the request for payment and the work that they've completed. The current request for payment includes the windows, which are being fabricated and will be on-site or stored locally before that payment is made, even though it's being approved under this request for payment. It doesn't have to be paid until the product is in the area.
So if we were to do the motion, we should probably say, to be paid once windows have arrived.
Yes.
Further questions about the invoice or the payment? Do I hear a motion to pay to ACS Build Inc. $37,597.25 upon arrival of the windows as presented? Whoop.
Oh, no, wait, the windows are
Oh.
11,000.
You're going to pay less the window amount right away,
Oh,
and then
okay,
pay the
I'm
window
sorry.
amount when it comes.
Right.
So what we really want is,
Wait, one more second.
I've got this.
Yeah.
By the-
Back up.
By the time this check is cut, the windows will already be here. So I think we can pay this $37,597 because we won't run checks again till the end of the month. And the windows are due to be here by the 19th or something. So I think you can.
Right, that was the motion, I just wanted us to do one check.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I don't know the internal working.
Yeah, so we'll do it. We'll cut the check. It shouldn't change anything about it, but if the windows don't arrive, then, yeah, we won't hand the check over. So let me try that again. Do I hear a motion to pay the invoice in the amount of $37,597.25 upon satisfactory arrival of the windows?
I have a question, I guess, I have a question prior to the motion, prior to the, if that's all right.
I don't hear a motion yet, so go
Okay.
ahead.
They're asking for actually two payments, one to the construction company and one directly to Pella to be ready when the windows arrive. Is that correct, David?
No, that's administrative.
Well, let's
In
back
other words,
up
I think they're asking for two checks to two different vendors.
Oh.
They are asking for two checks.
Two checks to two different vendors equaling
Yeah.
37,000.
Yes.
That's the little
There's the
fiscal
confusion.
snag
Okay.
here,
Yes.
so.
So they're not paying out to Pella, we're paying to Pella directly, and we're paying to ACS $25,797.25.
Correct.
Right. I remember.
We were both right. And
So
both
that
sadly
being-
wrong, but
the
thanks, Ron,
amended
for
mo-
correcting it.
The amended motion is if it's two checks equaling that amount,
Yep.
then I would make that motion.
So I hear the motion from Ron to pay $11,800 to Pella and $25,797.25 to ACS as presented.
And then,
11,000 to Pella on arrival of the windows.
yeah.
After arrival of the
The
windows.
work-
Motion combo.
Oh, yeah.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Second, Nedrow. Further discussion.
Just a question for David. The ACS charges of 26,000 that's for work now complete.
Yes, it is.
And the payments for the windows will be upon arrival, like John said in the motion.
Correct.
Thank you.
I had just a general question about how's the project going overall? Are we feeling, it's on schedule, ahead of schedule, getting close to getting back? And I think we need the microphone for you.
Want to answer that question? Yes. We're a little behind schedule, but there's opportunities to make up the difference. And our office is processing all their requests as fast as we can. We're not more than a day or two off on processing request information, doing shop drawing approvals. If a shop drawing has questions, it gets right back to them, and they have to go through a process of verifying what I'm concerned about. So our office is pretty much putting the ball right back in their court.
Okay, and do we yet have really a fairly good time frame for when it'll be done?
No, we do not have that just yet.
Okay.
Couple quick
John.
questions. I was asked a question, what will be the difference in the square footage in the building before and after? And I don't remember from the prints, I didn't run through it, but I guess that would just be the extensions in the back.
Extension, about 20 by 27 is, I believe, the answer to that.
Okay.
Double it. It's
Two
double.
floors.
Well, with the
That's
basement.
doubled? So an extra 500 square feet, is that what you're saying?
Yes, yeah. A little more
Something like
than
that? Okay, I can answer the question that way. I don't know, does anybody know what the whole building is in general?
I can calculate it, but I don't have that off the top of my head.
Well, we can get back to it. I don't know if I'll see that person for another couple of weeks anyway. I remember in the past, I think it was even last council meeting, we were discussing hardy boards and coverings and coatings, and I think we deferred that to.
Yep. Pre-paint versus paint on site.
Yeah, paint on versus.
And the answer was, we did our research.
Okay.
And we talked both to the manufacturer and some other project people, and we decided field paint.
Field paint.
Field paint.
Okay.
More
Better
consistent
finished,
with
yeah.
color, more, there's no touch-up issues. It's field paint,
And the durability will be a little less,
a
but.
little less, but really minor. And I had the good fortune of knowing the gentleman who runs the Sherwin-Williams store, and they have a specific spec for their paint that matches everything within the limits of the Hardy Board paint spec.
Oh.
Though Hardy Board won't exactly give you their paint spec, they know by the round table that it does match.
Thank you.
Dave, do you have a project schedule from ACS as far, because you said you didn't know when it's going to be done? Have they issued you a project schedule?
No, because we were late on getting the building permit approved. They were doing a few things on the inside with regard to the police department. We haven't gotten that final schedule just yet.
I would think they ought to get that pretty soon, then you're
Yes,
going to know
there's no
where
reason
things
not.
fall, okay?
Yeah, no reason not to give it to us now.
All right.
Has the rain made more complicated this basement
No,
issue?
they modified the grading out there before the rain came, and modified the piping for the downspouts, and there's very little in the hole. I really appreciated what they did out there, and I just texted them on the catch basin over here by the entrance and asked them to put some filter fabric around it and under the cover, which should happen in the morning.
Thank you, Dave.
Further questions? Okay, so just a reminder, motion to approve the invoice, 2 checks, one of them goes after the windows arrive. We've got it straight. Roll call vote.
Trumbo?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Medrell?
Yes.
Sinkwitz?
No.
McGee?
Yes.
Maggie?
No.
Kaczynski?
Yes.
Motion carries. I think that's it. Thanks. Recommendation from Planning. Planning Commission recommends council review the master plan. Let's start with Brian, or maybe we'll come over to Sharon.
Well, the letter on the face from our planning consultant is pretty self-explanatory, but we had to comply with Complete Streets portion of the state ordinance, I believe. And also, our last master plan was 2008, and according to code, we're supposed to be going through that every 5 years, so it was about time anyways. So if any of you went through it, I'll just summarize some of the changes that we ended up picking up on there. Probably gonna get a new picture of the village hall if it's done in time. That's one of the pages there. Changed all the census and demographics to meet the updated date criteria. So 2010 census is in there, and previously I think we were only at 2000, so there were some changes made there. We updated land use and the motorized path data.
The motorized, non-motorized path data is actually going along with the complete street stuff. And if you caught it on the water board section or the lake section, we mentioned the aeration project on there, and there was a couple other minor changes. But essentially, most of the plan is still intact from 08, so that's basically it.
Okay.
Those are the three main changes, then, really, the street.
Really, we had to comply with the change in the complete streets section,
Right.
which we did not have in there previously. So, yeah, that's basically the major changes.
I had a question just in general about neighborhood parks, which aren't mentioned in here. I believe they're mentioned as part of our park master plan.
Mhm.
That's still in keeping with the overall arrangement of this?
Mhm.
All right, let's go. Okay. I know Sharon had some issues with a few of the things that she saw.
I started going through it and found some things that we probably need to change, some names and
Well, obviously, yeah,
businesses
yeah,
and things
yeah.
like that, so I'll go through it a little bit more
Right.
in depth.
It is, and again, it's not even finalized yet.
Right.
This is really to make sure that council was really aware of what was going on. At this point, we have to have a public hearing on it. We have to actually send it out and neighboring communities and
Sometime.
utilities and stuff. And they have, I believe it's 59 days to reply. Any changes that they'd like to see made, then planning has a public hearing on it. Then we finalize all the changes and bring it back to council, so.
And so my understanding is, even if we know there are small changes here and there, tweaks we know we want to make, we can still send it out at this point to get the process kicked off, as long as we bring them back, get those changes and corrections made in the final.
Before it's adopted.
Yeah.
Correct.
Minor changes, I mean, would the inclusion of neighborhood parks constitute a significant or a minor change to the?
No, it'd be a minor change. It'd probably be something we could mention, I guess. Wouldn't hurt.
Well, I think it goes beyond wouldn't hurt. I think it's important that it's out there, because that is definitely part of the direction that we're headed. It's, in my opinion. It doesn't really address it. I mean, I agree there's time to do it. I just want to find,
Right.
as long as there's not any limitation of what constitutes significant change versus
Well, I
minor
think we
change.
did mention it in the goals section.
And I think
Those
that
goals.
is in the Park and Rec.
It's in the Park and Rec
Plan,
master
master plan.
plan.
Oh, Park and
There's a
Rec has that in
Park
there.
and Rec plan, which we reference in here.
Okay,
And they're working on updating theirs also.
all right. But under that, because under park services, it's not included.
I think it might be nice to see something in Park Services mentioning it, but
I do too. I think it's important.
Okay.
And Brian, it's good that you got on page 4 a picture of my favorite plant, the Phragmites.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure that was put in there for you, Pat.
I have a couple too. I don't know, do you want me to just give them to Sharon or you, Brian?
I
Huh?
can take them.
You
Sharon
take
can
them,
take 'em.
okay.
yeah, I don't think we want to
Like
go
a
through and
couple
wordsmith
things
this
that-
during a full council meeting,
No.
but.
No, I think that would be a work session item if you wanted to go page by page.
No, I mean, I can just, I mean, I have highlighted them, maybe after the meeting I can just give them to you,
That'd be great.
because I'd like to take this back with me,
Right.
see if there's anything I
And
missed.
so keep this document because
Yeah.
you're going to use it.
Down the road.
Yeah.
So we shouldn't give it to you.
No, but I can take her,
My notes.
Okay,
I can
have a
take
few
your notes.
myself.
Okay, good.
I had one general question, though, maybe just at this time, if you don't mind me asking. Back at page 34, it does show United Neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
They show a path, a proposed path going back up the Panhandle. I think that was part of the plan that was submitted when that developer was in fact involved. Is that still part of a future plan?
I think the United Neighborhoods pathway listed in there, I think that's something we should review as well.
Okay, because there are some other areas I have questions on. So the work session, will council be having a work session, is that what we're saying? Or you guys just gonna do it together and then present the final?
Actually, probably take it to planning.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Any changes? I mean, we're gonna be looking at it in planning before.
Okay.
Take your
then
notes.
Before a public
Give them to me
hearing,
and
so-
I'll
Okay.
put them all together
Yeah.
and
All right.
send them to planning.
That could be something that's brought up at public hearing if you care to,
Sure, absolutely.
or prior to.
Well, I think it should be accurate enough that
Yes.
it reflects where we're going rather than Where we thought we were.
Yeah, or where we were 10 years ago when we
Sure.
made the first
Okay.
draft of this. Yeah, I think that's procedurally probably the best way to go, is just bring them back here and collect them. We'll bring them back to planning.
Right.
Be happy to do a joint session with them at some point, or a work session, but I think right now let's,
Or just come to a meeting.
Just
come to
there
a
we
meeting.
go.
I think for now, get those items back to them, and we can still continue with the process by, make sure I've got the motion correct this time around. So we review the master plan. Do we actually have to do a motion out of here to do anything, or does it
No,
just go?
no, really, it's just
Okay, so
more
we just-
informational.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, review, hand back. We'll see where we are.
And at some point, the Parks and Rec master plan will be incorporated in.
No, they
We
have their
we
separate
referenced
master
that in here.
They, all right,
So, really, they have to take care of their own recreational master plan, but it's referenced in here,
okay,
so it's like an addendum to this.
all right.
So maybe get everybody a copy of that as well, since we're discussing it.
As soon as they finish it, I guess.
They're working on it.
They're working on theirs, okay.
Yeah.
Anything else? Seeing none. Recommendations from Water Board. Water Board recommends Town Council appoint Tony Sweatish to the board with a term expiring December 31st, 2015. John, you want to introduce this?
I'd certainly like to introduce Tony. Tony was a good and viable participant in our first meeting to grill and make sure he met all of our requirements at the Water Board. Actually, Tony's been involved with the village over a number of years, probably can date all the way back to really where our fireworks moved into the hands of the great participants that it's in right now. So, and he's on the decks doing what he needs to do on the decks every year to get him prepared for the fireworks. So it's with great pleasure I have the ability to ask council to appoint Tony to the Water Board.
All right, council, questions for?
Any
I
second?
didn't quite hear that as a motion, but I would take it as a
I'm
motion.
making a motion to.
Motion Scott, second Cumbo,
I take it as a motion.
to appoint Tony to the Water Board with a term expiring December 31st, 2015. Open for discussion. Questions for Tony?
I don't have any questions for Tony, but the chairman, the Yancey's in the audience, I thought he might want to
Was
comment.
he here? I'm sorry, I didn't see him back there. Hey,
Comment
get
from the
over here,
chair?
Cliff.
If Cliff would like to comment.
Well, yeah, just as Councilman Scott said, we're delighted to appoint Tony to the Water Management Board and fill the rest of the term of the vacancy we have. And, yeah, I think he'll be a great member of the board, and we'll probably use his IT experience to maybe help us with our website, improvements we can do. We'd like to get more data on there for the Water Management Board, maybe with aeration, things like that. So it'd be,
Hey, Cliff, are we at full staff now on the Water Management Board?
yes, we are. So, we do have a few people that have missed meetings, so, somebody, I think there's at least one person that they missed one meeting this year that would be automatic.
I talked to one of them who missed the last meeting, and he led me to believe that he was gonna have to resign. So, Matt,
I don't know. Defer to Sharon. I know Sharon keeps better track than I do.
All right, any further discussion of the motion to appoint Tony? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Tony, come on up and get sworn in, and let's get the microphone up here for that too.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state,
and the Constitution of this state,
and that I will faithfully perform the duties of Water Management Board member
and I will faithfully perform the duties of Water Management Board member
in and for the Village of Wolverine Lake,
in for the Village of Wolverine Lake,
County of Oakland,
County of Oakland,
State of Michigan, according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
State of Michigan, according to the best of my ability, so help me God. Congratulations. Thank you.
Who's next? Right above your name would be great. Oh, I could have done that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
All right. Item 2, Water Management Board recommends council stock approximately 1,200 walleye. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion Sinkowitz. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Second Scott. We have budgeted, I believe, $2,500 for this item. All right, so do I hear that motion to include not to exceed $2,500?
Just budgeted.
Okay.
Yeah, as budgeted, yeah.
If I may comment that that 1,200.
Well, the only
Big
comment I was gonna make is that since, because of a lot of things that happened last year, we didn't stock any fish whatsoever. So I would hope that when Sharon starts to investigate this, that if the cost of 1,200 fish should be slightly over that amount, then we get the 1,200 fish no matter what.
No, I wouldn't do that, because you have a budget of 2,500, and I wouldn't spend more than
We
that.
don't have any idea.
I have to research after you make the motion, then I have to research what size fish I can get.
Because the fish size is all based on price too.
Right, they would like 6 to 8 inch walleye, so that's what I'll research.
You're asking for
Why
8
don't we make
inches.
it not to exceed $3,000? We didn't spend any money last year, so.
Yeah, I know.
My only point is, we don't know what the cost of the fish are yet. So if we need a certain size range, I would hate to do anything less than 1,200, because we did nothing last year.
Let me add, before I entertain the change to your motion, can we hear from John on what the discussion of, and sense of the Water Management Board was for their recommendation?
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to go back on it. Very simply, we did not, I don't disagree with that, Ed, stock last year. We did, however, the year before stock walleye. The program that was brought forward, and we had a significant discussion on it at the last meeting of Water Board, but the program brought forward by Jeff at the DNR Fisheries was that we should cap at 1,200. Walleye were an every other year recommendation, so the fact we didn't stock last year, if we would have stocked, I guess it would have been chub or goldeneye or some other feeder fish. So we're really back on schedule. I think we pushed very hard to have the electrical shocking done, to have the survey done, listen carefully to everything that was in fact recommended. Cliff had put that in a summary form, and we're just sticking along with what the DNR had recommended, which is 1,200 fish. So I suppose you can go smaller to get to your 1,200. I don't know. I'm not a fish biologist.
I guess the point that I was trying to make is 1,200 is the number, fine.
Well, they're saying, their recommendation is to stock approximately 1,200 walleye. The Water Management Board would like to stock the largest walleye that fits within the budgeted amount for fish stocking. They would like 8 inch instead of 6 inch. So they're saying approximately 1,200, or however many you can get for the budgeted amount of $2,500.
And staying to the larger size
Yes.
of that.
Yeah, the larger the better.
1,100,
because they're-
800.
Yeah, they're
I mean,
less
8
of a
inches
predator.
would make-
Yeah.
yeah.
What my point is making is if we don't know the cost and we don't know what's available, what if we can only get 800 fish? I don't think that's for that amount of money, that's sufficient. We said 1,200. That's the only point I'm trying to make. Let's get the 1,200 in. If it's a few bucks more, I mean, we've got the money, we're spending it left and right, let's buy the fish.
Okay, let me go to the chair of the Water Management Board, because I think he was raising his hand back there.
I don't disagree with Ed. I more the merrier in some respects. But just to be factual, the recommendation by the fish biologist was 3 to 5 per acre. which works out on the 5 at about 1,200. So 3 would be, a bit less than that, maybe around 900. So, if we could only get 900 and they were 8 inches, that would still meet the recommendation of the fish biologist, so.
And as a general question, would you guys prefer 900 8-inchers, 1,200 6-inchers?
I guess we'd prefer the larger ones.
The larger ones.
And there's a reason we don't stock walleye every year, because they would actually become predatory on themselves, the smaller ones we put in, which is one reason we made the recommendation to put the 8-inch ones in, if we can, instead of the 6, because there is a chance that they are some of them are devoured by other fish, so including the other predators that are in the lake.
Okay, so I want to go back to Ed's original motion, which before I asked him for clarification was to stock 1,200 walleye. I think that was the recommendation that I heard.
Budget on $2,500.
Wow.
Well,
I
no,
was
so
under the impression that we usually get the largest fish we can get. There's been times we've got fish that look like they're ready to go on the plate, and sometimes they're not. If the bigger fish are available, and 1,200 is a number that has been brought back to us by the fishery, and the water board agrees with it, let's put 1,200 of the 8-inch fish in there. Sometimes they have an abundance of fish, and they'll say, we don't have anything that's 6 inches, everything, because we do it late in the season. My argument is that if we got budgeted $2,500, and we didn't spend anything on fish last year, let's get the 8-inch fish, at least 8-inch fish, 1,200 of them. If we have to spend an extra $400 or $500, we can. I would think we could put an extra $500 in the lake if we can put $400,000 into this building. That's it. My motion is to get 1,200 walleyes put in the lake at a size of 8 inches or better.
okay, so that's
And a lot's gonna come back as what is available.
Yeah.
We might fall underneath that program, I don't know, but instead of going back and forth at another meeting.
So that's Ed's motion as stated. Do I hear a second for that motion?
I think there was a second, that motion was.
I think there was uncertainty over what the motion was, because honestly, Ed said, I make that motion. So I then restated it in a way that he didn't want to. That is Ed's original motion. I'm going back for a second on that motion.
Yeah, second.
Okay, so we've got a second. So now we've got the motion on the floor. I would prefer to see us stick to the $2,500 limit if we could. I don't think we're really going to know till we actually get the prices one way or the other.
What is the time frame for stocking? We stock in October?
We usually stock in October.
I mean, I think,
This should come from Waterboard a long time ago.
I think it's fine coming now. I mean, I think we'll just have to have this discussion. Hearing what Cliff said, the recommendation of the DNR biologist, 3 to 5 per acre. We're about a 250 acre lake, so we're really talking somewhere between 750 and 1,250. 1,250 being the larger size, 8-inch being the largest available. I think the recommendation from Water Board was to stick with the budget
That's what they said.
as presented.
They said it.
Yeah, and that was in their recommendation.
Call the vote.
See what happens. Now we'll have Mr. Mallett go out and, with his little tin cup, and get some donations for the fish stocking like he so graciously did a few years ago.
Yeah, we're poor.
So, further discussion on the motion as we have it now.
What is the motion right now?
The motion is to stock 1,200 8-inch walleye.
Okay.
Let's get a roll call vote on that motion.
Oh, we're still in discussion.
I was asking for further discussion, I didn't hear any, but yeah, before we start the vote, yeah.
Okay, I mean,
Discussion.
like, I comment first, I mean, I don't like that, I don't like this, the inference that we were spending money on all this stuff, so okay, we spend a few more bucks on fish. It makes it sound like the like the votes to spend money on other issues that are not well thought through, or not, the motions are not well conceived, and I kind of take somewhat of an offense on that. That being said, I tend to agree, if we need, a few more dollars on fish stocking, I think it's appropriate. But where my votes probably will fall in is that, maybe because I was on water board before, I was the liaison on water board, maybe the motion should have come prior to this meeting. I can't say whether it should or whether it shouldn't, but I think we should respect the water board's motion. And to say that, well, okay, we acknowledge part of their motion, the 800 fish, whatever, but we're going to disregard their fiscal recommendations, I think it's a little bit, not giving due respect to their discussion. So my thoughts are we should, A or nay against the water board's recommendation.
Is there still time? I mean, that Sharon can find out what we're gonna get for X number of dollars and bring it back before us next month and still get the fish stocked in October, if there's an issue about money.
That's possible, I don't know.
Let me call on our Water Management Board Chair again, because
Again, I'm just trying to be factual. Just trying to be factual. I had actually thought that we had budgeted more than the $2,500 since we had not, and we discussed that in our meeting, that, I thought we had budgeted $3,500 for this year, or maybe $3,000. So I was under that impression, just to be honest, myself, and I had stated that in the water management, meeting, in the water management board meeting. But I just throw that out because that actually was my thinking. So just to be factual.
As maybe as a resolution or solution, I should say, couldn't we modify the motion to say, buy as many, target 8-inch, the larger fish, as many as possible within the budget of $2,500? Make that motion, do the investigation, purchase that fish. If it comes in to say markedly lower, or any lower, 600 or 700 or 500, we still have time in October. We'll know the pricing, we'll have what's available, and we could do an additional thing in October. Could we not?
that would certainly be an alternate motion that we could have.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Would that
makes
be
sense, too.
reasonable, Ed? I mean, that's, over the 2-month period, we'd still get the 800 larger walleye by the end of October.
This is already September, so, and again, we're looking at all these if and whats and what we can do. We don't know anything until Sharon starts to find out what's available and everything. All I'm saying is, instead of going back and forth, you want 1,200 fish. It sounded like I wasn't the only one that thought we'd be spending a few more dollars this year. 1,200 fish, approximately 8 inches long, period. I started this program 15 years ago, and we never had problems stocking fish, never had any complaints from the residents. And it seems like in the last 3 or 4 years, everything has changed. We're looking at catfish, sterilized catfish, this fish, no fish.
Well, that
Do
might
whatever
be,
you want.
that
I
might-
made a motion, it's been
that might be
seconded,
the
I
ca-
believe, and
I
let's
understand.
call for the vote.
And
Then you can make your own motion.
But that might be the case, but I mean, that's not part of this motion. I want to make that, whether it's
Clarification.
catfish and the viral issues that the fish farms had, that's not a part of this motion.
Okay. We can vote on this motion. If it fails, I can entertain a different motion.
Would you state the motion one more time?
The motion is to buy 1,200 walleye at a 1,200 8-inch walleye with no cost attached.
Just for clarification, though, didn't the Water Management Board, or the DNR said between 800 and 1,200, or 900 and 1,200, like 3 per acre versus 5 per acre? So if it's, you get 900 for $2,500, it's gonna meet with the recommendation of the DNR, okay?
That is
So-
correct.
That's correct.
So instead of saying 1,200 fish, we still want the 8-inch fish, but maybe we can get up to 1,200 for,
That's not the motion.
yeah.
That's not what the motion
That-
is.
I know, that's why I
not what
wanted
the motion is.
clarification. I mean, because that's what was, the chairman of the water board made that comment. So I think we ought to clarify it somehow.
Yeah, the recommendation, just to be clear, I'm gonna read through the recommendation from Water Management. Thank you. Motion by Yance, seconded by Scott, to stock approximately 1,200 walleye. The Water Management Board would like to stock the largest walleye that fits within the budgeted amount for fish stocking, i.e. 8 inches instead of 6 inches. Motion carried. In fairness to that recommendation, it sounds like the chair, who made the motion, thought we had more than $2,500 in the fish stocking budget.
Call for the vote. Let's move on.
Excuse me, if that being the case, then why don't we modify the motion to say not to exceed a higher value and amend the budget appropriately? That will satisfy, can we do that, or no?
We could certainly make an amendment, we could certainly modify the motion to include a not to exceed of, say, $3,500.
I don't have an issue with that either.
We don't have issues. I don't think Ed's taking a friendly on this one.
No, I don't expect to spend over $3,500. I don't think that's necessary.
So Ed, would you take a friendly amendment, not to exceed $3,500, and to modify the budget appropriately?
Yeah, 8-inch fish, as many as we can get.
Okay.
But
Wait.
not to exceed- no, not to exceed 1,200.
Up to 1,200, right.
There we go. You let me finish. Don't want to have too many fish.
We're ratcheting up the walleye war here.
Okay, if that's his, if he's accepting that friendly amendment, or motion, change the motion, I'll second.
Yeah, okay, so I think we're on board now. The motion now restated to purchase up to 1,200 8-inch walleye at a cost not to exceed $3,500 and to amend the budget as appropriate if needed.
Sounds good to me.
Let's vote.
All right. Any further discussion? I hope not. Roll call vote.
Scott?
Yes.
Dedrow?
Yes.
Sikowitz?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
Maggie?
Yes.
Kazaki?
Yes.
Humboldt?
Yes.
$2,500.
That's the biggest thing tonight.
My goodness.
One of these days, that one's going to roll. Okay. Item G, recommendation from Park Capital Improvement Committee. Park Capital Improvement Committee recommends council have the area by the mailboxes at Oak Island paved and plowed in the winter by DPW as presented. But I think there are potentially some issues with that, so I think I'm going to hinge it to.
I'm going to let John speak since he's the chairperson of that committee.
Okay.
Chairperson of the committee, and I guess still renominated as president of the Oak Island Association. When you say there are some difficulties, Sharon, Andy, and I met at the very area that's pictured in item G, just so you have some reference points. What we were considering was removal of the sign. There has been a plan made to do landscaping, as might be remembered. And there was a comment during our homeowners association meeting that during the winter, particularly during the winter, if there, and I guess I'll have to defer this to John, if there are ambulances, and I guess there was one incident with an ambulance that had to come over, along with the entourage of emergency police vehicles, their only turnaround capability at that point in time is to go further down the island. I'm not sure if that's correct or incorrect. So in consideration of not only beautifying the park, but I guess isolating this front entrance area, we had decided, I think among the association, a majority at least, to propose, and I brought that back to the Capital Committee, to propose asphalting what is now basically an area that's filled with millings. Okay. There are other extenuating items that we have talked about, or we talked about on the island, brought to that conversation by again, the head of the DPW, that whether this is asphalted or not, it would not have high priority during snow emergencies. So therefore, part of the plan was to take the mailboxes, which are sort of being held together by 2x4s, and move them around to where you see the yellow sign. Subsequently, I have talked with those that have volunteered to rebuild the mailboxes, and what we're going to do is take the mailboxes right off of that area and move them up towards about 20 feet up the island or up the road and put them by the telephone pole. And I guess that was approved by our mail delivery man. He said that would be okay, because regardless of whether or not the proposed asphalted area is in fact plowed on the first sweep under a snow emergency, he still could get at the mailboxes there. So I don't know if you have any comment about the positive feature of putting the asphalt down, but you know, it just
That island is.
it is, isn't it?
Conducive to emergency vehicles
Yeah.
anyways.
Yeah.
There's a lot of backing and there's a lot of turning, but there's not, you're not gonna fix that island. There's nothing we can do to make it more emergency vehicle friendly.
Yeah, you mean in
Thank you.
terms of the number of cars in the...
Or turns, or when you're meeting another vehicle. If we have an ambulance up on that road, nobody else is gonna get through.
Yeah.
So there's not much we're gonna do with that anyway.
So paving is really not a major advantage?
It's not gonna be a major advantage to us. However, the turnaround there is gonna, if that's what you're talking about, is the
Yeah.
turnaround there?
Yeah.
You know, that will help, I'm sure, eventually, and then, but at the same time, it's not gonna be a make or break for that island. So
No,
it's
I
not gonna-
understand.
It's not gonna
But I
improve it
think,
that much, so.
it's a plus. It's a plus both for the look of the park, it's a plus for the possibility of a turnaround, and, you know, it's not just, right at this point in time, that area is covered with snow during the winter, and so to have something available, even if it's plowed on the second run, still makes more sense than to have nothing at this point in time. So, and that's part of what we're trying to do, obviously, in the Parks and Rec Committee, is we're trying to move this to be the beginning of the development of up to 4 or 5 parks as time goes on.
Isn't that where the snow gets plowed to, though? Is that area?
Yeah.
Well, that was discussed.
Okay.
Yeah, that was discussed. That's why Andy was there.
Okay.
And that's why I'll reiterate the question of clearing that after it's asphalted would not be on the first run of an emergency.
Oh, I guess the only problem would be is where are you gonna put that snow now that you can't put it there if that's gonna be in, because you
Yeah,
can't leave it
development.
there, obviously, but there's very limited space for them to get their trucks through there and for them to maneuver to push that snow off the road. If that's a place that we're taking away from them to where they put the snow, I guess we're gonna have to figure out a place to put there. Not me, as much as the DPW guys, obviously.
down there, no
But to make the
problem.
road safe and passable, and to make it part of the road, they're gonna have to remove the snow and put it somewhere.
Well,
So-
and that was discussed.
Okay.
Andy was there, and basically, if you look beyond the area where the park sign is and go a little bit further back, beyond where the proposed circular drive is, there seems to be somewhere around 1.5 acres of park where they feel comfortable that we had cars parked, that they could, on that sweep of that particular curve.
Push the snow back up
push
in
the
the,
snow back
okay,
in.
as long as, I was just afraid if we're gonna put a fence up around that park area, that they're not gonna be able to push the snow back, obviously, back through the fence. I didn't know if there was a fence going around there.
There's no
I know
fence.
we had talked about it at one time, but, okay.
Mr. President, we have some people in the audience that wanted to speak, so, but before we get to that, I don't know if you or Sharon can answer a question. They have that corral there with 4 or 5 mailboxes. Is there any reason why those mailboxes aren't at their homes?
I don't know this for sure. Somebody more familiar with Oak Island may be able to correct me. Having lived in other rural, suburban, semi-rural places, there are areas where the post office says, we will deliver up to this point, and if you want mail, you have to put a mailbox here. I assume that was the case there.
Because I would think I mean, I don't know, I mean, there's two people that live on the island, do they deliver mail to your house?
They do deliver mail to our house.
So, you know-
There is an aggregate box area located up from my house where it handles 4 homes.
I mean, that would be something to look into, because then, you know, as far as snow plowing and where we're gonna put the mailboxes and why put them here, and I'm sure the people that have the boxes there, if they could, they'd rather have it delivered to their house than have to walk.
I can
you know.
answer that for you.
Pardon me? Okay, go ahead.
Post office will not allow, because that area to the left is where those homes, where those mailboxes are from.
Okay.
There's no area safely for them to turn around down that way.
Okay.
That's why. At the end of that particular stretch of road is where those mailboxes are. They're actually just going to move them to the east further along the fence line. So it's just out of that centerpiece to the
No, I know
east.
where they're gonna move them, I was just wondering why they couldn't have.
Because there's no safe way for them to turn around down
That
there.
answers my question. Thank you.
John, Scott, clarification, you're saying in that picture, if we move the mailboxes, that whole grassy area is gonna be paved, is that what we're saying?
No.
No.
I mean,
Just
it's
the area that is
behind.
currently behind it.
Just
Okay, that's-
just the milled
Right.
area.
Circle
Okay.
road.
That's what I thought, okay, thank you.
I have a question regarding where they're gonna put all those mailboxes. You go onto the island, and the mailbox, then there's the road that goes off to the left. If you go straight, right then, that's where those mailboxes are now.
Yeah, and if you,
And we're proposing where the road goes left, put them
No, if
down
you look
there,
at-
or just
no, we're
move it
just gonna
further
move
down
them
the
down where
road.
that telephone pole is on that picture.
Right,
Just see the telephone pole behind the mailboxes?
Straight behind them.
yeah.
Okay, we're gonna move
Move 'em
them
down,
from
further
there,
down
just
there.
as John said, just further east, on the same roadside. That'll allow us to do what has been planned in the area in and around the proposed asphalt area and/or behind it, to do some more landscaping and et cetera.
And where was the parking? Wasn't there gonna be some defined parking for a neighborhood park, maybe a couple of spots? And where were those spots going to be?
Well, that was something of high discussion, to basically allow more logical enforcement of the area in total, since it is a municipal park, not an Oak Island park, so to say. And most of the discussion centered around what you can't really see in good definition, but if you look to the far left, anybody that's been on the island knows that there's a run of boulders. That telephone pole in the left-hand side of the picture is blocking a run of boulders that goes up to what looks to be that gray house, okay? Those boulders are in fact placed there by that resident, but they are in fact in park property. So there's some work out that's being done to tell that individual that either the boulders would be moved, or the preference would be for them to gift that line of boulders and landscaping to the park, which I don't think they'll have a problem.
That still doesn't address where the parking would go.
Well, and that's what I was gonna get to.
Okay.
The question of parking was proposed along that boulder line, to the east, if you would, is that correct, I guess, to the west of the 2 trees you can see behind the yellow sign, which is currently our park sign. That's still under discussion. This first phase is to basically define the landscaping area, to in fact see an improvement in the general area by asphalting that circular drive, and the definition area for parking, which some of us believe is very important, others don't want to see anything done, but to have some definition of parking take place over time, so that during anything other than areas of celebration like July 3rd and et cetera, where part of the park might still be parked upon, but only on occasion, not as a consistent thing. I guess an area for parking has to be defined eventually. But we're right at this point in time, that seems to be the most logical area. Actually, that's the area where most people park. So keeping the far end of the park, the most easterly part of the park, green as much as we can. Andy actually also talked about the need to bring up some topsoil and do seeding in here. So
before you guys get too far in your planning, my suggestion also would be to get with the engineer to make sure that the sewer lines and things of that nature that are running through there are not going to be interfered with by the paving and the moving of the parking areas and things like that,
You
because,
don't want to pave something and have to rip it out.
yeah,
and have the
because,
sewer line.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna be the impact, but we'll check that out.
And I believe there's also still work going underway to define where signs and other things can be,
Yeah.
because right here in this upper area where currently we just have the street sign, probably not as suitable as it once been hoped because of the snow plowing issue, and also because there is a manhole cover there and a guy wire for a power pole, so.
Which always leads to the question, how do they stack snow in that little area anyways? We were discussing that, and Andy said he wasn't sure, because he doesn't plow anymore, so he's gonna be in contact.
Well, he doesn't plow that area.
Yeah, he doesn't plow this area, I mean, we obviously know he plows
Big
a
truck
whole
doesn't
lot,
fit that
many hours a day. But I think he's gonna get that clarified with the gentleman who's responsible for plowing the island.
So, let me go to Sharon, see if we've got any input. We still have a member of the public who wanted to talk on this. Sharon, from your point of view, any input for,
No, I
DPW?
think John mentioned everything. We did meet out there with DPW, and I didn't realize that they didn't plow that back section of the road in the winter. So they can plow that, but we still need places to put snow, and if you've been over there, most of the homes have, their landscaping right out to the road, and there's a lot of paved driveways. There's not a lot of places on that area to push the snow. So unfortunately, it falls all over the place, doesn't fall in certain areas. And so we're still working on that. But I don't see that it would cause a problem to pave that area and have that plowed in the wintertime.
Do we hear a motion to open to the public?
Second.
Motion Nagy, second Kazanecki. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Yes, sir.
Tom Hirsch, 265 Oak Island. Is this on?
Yep.
Okay. I sent a letter to the Parks and Rec on 5/12 and asked for several of the things that you're talking about, and for them to get a hold of me for some feedback, and asked before anything was done that the residents of Oak Island subdivision, not just Oak Island subdivision, who this is really affecting, have some input before anything is done. Now, I come tonight and you're talking about, Parks and Rec is talking about going beyond that, not asking any input, and asking the council to pave this road, or this turnaround. Well, we had a meeting back the 1st of August. I don't know if, the meeting, there were 7 items on them, or 6 items, and everything was basically to keep everything status quo in the park as it is. The reason that the parking, that turnaround was brought up about being paved was because somebody suggested putting the mailboxes in that turnaround. And I suggested moving it towards that telephone pole back then, which is, to my way of thinking, is the most logical place to put it, is towards the telephone pole. Move it 20 feet, to the east, and be done with it. In the winter months, you're not going to get that plowed. Quite frankly, there's just too much snow in that corner. All that snow comes up the hill, goes down the hill, the side street, and Oak Island itself. There's just too much snow there, especially this past year we had, that you're not going to get that circular drive paved or plowed. There was talk about bringing gravel up in there, and the residents of the island want nothing to do with bringing more gravel in there. If you recall, several years ago, about 5 years ago, the landscapers, the village people, when they were cutting grass, were throwing stones across the street into the vehicles parked in the driveways. They've rectified that, because now they're cutting it and trying to throw it all into the park rather than across the street. Basically, there were, there's some other stuff. I'd like to have a meeting with Parks and Rec and Oak Island subdivision to go through this and hash it out, rather than taking up the time here. I don't think that, I think Dave Wilner's last meeting here in 2002 stated that in the council at that time, stated that the status quo of that park was paramount in operating the park. And at that time, it was a village park. It wasn't, the litigation had already been taken care of. So I think the village, water, Parks and Rec should have a meeting with the residents and hash it out, rather than taking up all this time.
All right, thank you. I think to John to address some of that.
Well, I don't disagree with that in one sense. In the other sense, I think anybody who's been on our mailing list, all of the parties of the Oak Island Association received 2 summaries as to our meeting. I think there were 4 or 5 pages that I wrote. I, in turn, took those summaries and made comments or questions among the people that I could get a hold of, and in turn, that summary was delivered to Parks and Rec and also to the Parks and Rec Capital. So I don't know, Tom, if you had any disagreement with the summary and what the... Well, it was emailed to you, so I'd be more than happy to hand deliver it to you. It was emailed to everybody in the mail list, and I checked with most people seem to have it. Our treasurer has it, certainly our secretary has it, and so I assumed you got it, Tom. I apologize.
I forget there are several things I can't open because of what my computer can do and can't.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that. Well, that input, I guess basically we've been hashing this over and over again. But basically that input was all shared among Parks and Rec, Capital Committee, and the members of the Oak Island Association.
And that was my understanding. So let's see if we can get him the...
Just one clarification, quick question. Just the people on the island were involved?
In that, because it was an Oak Island Association meeting and our association...
It wasn't the Oak Island subdivision, it was just that?
That the association is open to anybody who wants to come and join. If we want to, I think it would be even logical to move this association and make it bigger. If we do that, that would be everybody over on Oakview, as well as, I guess, some people in Canal.
Before we do that, let's just, number one, let's make sure the summary of that meeting gets back to anybody who didn't see that.
I'll drop one off.
Number two.
You're talking about the summary of our association meeting?
Yes, correct.
I've got the minutes right here. The minutes state that they want the park to stay status quo. They don't want parking. They were very adamant about no parking spaces. They just want the park to stay status quo. They didn't even, for the most part, want swing sets or anything else up there. For fear that cars are going to hit them when they're parked up there. That park is used on the weekends when somebody has a graduation party or a get-together, and on the 3rd of July. Those are the times that park is used. Now, if you're going to keep people out of the park, you're going to have cars up and down Oak Island Drive in front of Bruckner's house, in front of Wissing's house. Coming off that bridge, you're not going to be able to get cars through there because they're going to have no place to park except in front of their house. I think that should be taken care of with the park and rec people.
Well, that gets me to the second thing I was going to say here, which is I think we really are at the point where it's time to have public hearing, Parks and Rec. Let's get, there are a couple of proposals out there. I know there's been some work behind the scenes to try to better define them so that we've got something there, but we don't want to get any of these neighborhood park projects ahead of the neighborhood. We want to make sure the neighborhood's fully engaged, so.
Well, we want to do that, and I think at the same point in time, the question would be, if you aren't fortunate enough to have a park across from your house, and I can think that's most of the residents in the area, from a council standpoint, from a public body standpoint, do you step forward and say, well, we'll make an exception over there, so, well, I'll tell you what, anybody that's in and around Clara Miller, why don't you go park on the grass, or things like that. So this is a defined municipal park. It's owned by the village residents, and it is in fact a item that is included in everybody's taxes. This is a prorated, per diem taxed item on everybody on the island plus everybody off the island. So I guess we have to make a decision as to where we inconvenience somebody for a short period of time and yet make allowances for holidays, which is what we've done. And at the same point in time, stand forward as a council body and say, look, it is in fact a public park. It is a place where other people should be allowed to come. It isn't a personal property. Until this body step forward, under an awful lot of my push and other people's push, as the lady I live with once said, too bad you stepped forward. We should have let those people who bought it develop 3 houses there. Because that's what would have happened. So now it would step forward. I think it was $29,000 or $30,000 spent to litigate this to become a public park. It's a public park. We should take it as a body of public park, make the decisions to improve it, not only for the 8 houses or 6 houses that really use it for parking, but for the entire body public.
And John, I'm not disagreeing with any of that. I'm not actually debating any of that tonight. What I'm saying is, I think we are due for a public hearing. Public hearing, everybody in the village, everybody come in, everybody who might be affected.
I agree.
By either using or not using. I think the time has come in the process to have that hearing, because we've had some back and forth. There's been an association hearing. It sounds like there wasn't a full subdivision hearing. I think there's at least the perception of confusion about either what's being proposed, what we want to do, what we don't want to do, what's reasonable, what the residents want, what the residents don't want. To me, that all sounds like it adds up to, it's time to have a public hearing.
And I don't disagree.
I don't think it's a problem with perception. I think it's a problem of preference. I think people, using the term that Tom uses, a status quo, that's what they want. It's de facto, they've used it as basically a private property when it's a public park. John Scott is exactly right, that we should, it is a public park and should be utilized as such and recognized as such. That's not to make it sound like we're going to be totally insensitive about the feelings of people that live right adjacent to it, but at the same time, that's what it is. Don't confuse this like, well, we need input, we need all this kind of stuff. We need to take a stand. It's recognized as a public park, and we should recognize it and utilize it as such. Anything short of that, I think it's a dereliction of our duties, frankly.
I'm not sure how asking for neighborhood input on some of the options before us is suddenly abrogating or abandoning this as a public park. What I want to see is make sure that we get, everybody has a chance to come to the table, everybody has a chance to talk about it. I actually participated earlier this year up in Commerce. They had a very large public hearing on what to do with the former Nike Air Force Base project there. Really good meeting, really positive, got everybody who was interested in parks and commerce. Everybody came up there, everybody put options on the table. They brought a lot of them forward. They went back, came through everything that had come and came forward with a proposal, but they took the step to get that input first and to get it in a public forum. And I think we're now at the point where that to me is a logical step here. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying, hey, don't do anything. I'm not saying, hey, do everything. I'm saying, I'd like to hear from people. I mean, we've had a lot of discussions about using it as a park, what we might want to do, what we might not want to do. Don't want to, run down the list of everything, because it's really a large set of options. I think there are some reasonable things we can do to make that an improved public park, but
I was under the impression that the Parks and Rec Board had a defined set of basic equipment they wanted in each neighborhood park. They wanted to target a number of parks you have neighborhood parks available to all sections of our community and
Yeah,
so on.
but I
So
believe
Even if
they've
it's a
also
public
said.
park, you have to be sympathetic to the people that are gonna be immediately and adjacently affected.
And I agree with that. I'm not.
So why wouldn't a public hearing be a good idea?
No, but more to the point, my understanding of the process Park and Rec asked for was to have a public hearing for each of these as we go forward, so we can get neighborhood input. And what I'm saying now is, we haven't had that hearing yet because it's really been a lot of research, a lot of going back and forth. There isn't a concrete proposal. There isn't, there is actually, well, concrete, there's an asphalt proposal now, but that one may be a fairly small and irrelevant to the broader issue of the park anyways. I'm just saying, I think we're starting to hit that point in the process where I would like to see us proceed with that hearing.
Okay. I mean, I'm not against having a public hearing to air everyone's grievances, I guess is what it's going to amount to.
I don't even really want grievances. I want input. I want to hear from people adjacent to the park, people across the street, people in the neighborhood who would use it, people somewhere outside the village who want it. I just want public input.
Would that be a public hearing not only to handle the issue of Oak Island, but to talk about the concept of neighborhood parks in total, and then name those that we're thinking of putting out as public parks, since there are some defined areas? Don't you think that's where we ought to go with this?
I think it makes sense to have public input on both fronts. Certainly the immediate issue of what's happening in Oak Island has its own pressing thing, but I think we could do them both in the same meeting.
Yeah, I think so too.
I agree. I think it's a good idea, John. I mean, like the Park and Rec has got some ideas about these pocket parks and the direction we're going, and if we need to buy property, not buy property for another neighborhood
Yeah.
park, pocket park, it's a good time to get it on the table in front of the public.
Pam, you want to comment on behalf of Parks and Rec?
Well, yeah, obviously, they have put together a list of what they thought would be basic, to any park. That being a bench or a table, trash receptacles, doggy station type thing, and some type of equipment, whether it be a swing or a gazebo or something, with the input of the people in the area. I unfortunately couldn't make the last committee meeting because it was on a Thursday, and I couldn't make it, so I wasn't there for that. But they definitely been talking about it for a long time, and we had discussed in a lot of detail that Oak Island would be our first project, and based on what happened there, it kind of set the precedent for other future parks. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
So let's go back to the paving issue at hand. And I think at this point, I've forgotten, I don't think we yet have a motion.
I would like to make
in
a
front of
motion
us.
that we don't pave that portion of the road at this particular time.
I hear a motion from Sinkowitz. Do I hear a second for that motion?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Second, Nagy. Discussion.
Do we want to just not recommend not paving it, or is it best just to table that issue until we have a public hearing and go with that route at that time? Do we have to make a motion to not do it since it isn't an agenda item? Either way.
My thinking is that if this is a place where the snow gets stacked up through most of the winter, no use putting paving underneath it, because the paving is just gonna turn bad. I almost slipped. The other fact
Turn to
is-
rubble.
Get all messy, caca. But if someplace down the road, when we start to get into this, and if we're gonna do it the park, maybe we want to make something else there. But from what I've seen, and I live close proximity to that, with all the snow over there, that why asphalt over that and have that snow sitting on there, keeping that asphalt cold and wet through the whole winter? And it's not a priority place, it's a priority place to push snow. So But the only reason I said at this particular time is that someplace down the road with Parks and Rec, they might come up with something else that they want to do, maybe move a telephone pole, make parking out or whatever. But as of now, do not pave.
Okay. And the motion was not to pave it at this time. I think I would be okay with deferring that. We do paving projects every year, and if we wait until we have a complete plan in place and then
Yeah,
pave at that
that's
time,
fine.
I think that doesn't make much of a difference. John?
I was just going to disagree with the statement, not that it's not going to be plowed. I think Andy agreed that once it was paved, it would be plowed. It was just a question, it wasn't going to be plowed in the first sweep. I think the other thing that, with all due respect to Andy and our DPW, we have to understand that he needs to have the place to dump snow and push snow. There's no doubt about that. We have great coverage and clearing when we need it. I think this particular area, this milled area, whether it's paved or not paved, is really more of an aesthetic issue. I don't see any meeting going forward where we're going to change or remove that sweep. And I think it would have some, I live on the island, so I go over the island all the time. I mean, 22 years times 365 days, I guess I approach this. So I have a personal interest on the island and its aesthetic look and how we're going to use it. I don't see it sitting under snow, so I think that's a fallacious argument. I think Andy said they would sweep it and would do something with it to make sure it's cleared, but not on a first priority list. The other thing is, snow is around, but the park's around for 365 days. Last year was the worst winter we've seen. I've lived through winters in this town when there's very little snow. So let's assume that at the worst we have 35 days worth of snow. We're going to drive a decision, I hope not in just this park, but everything we do, by the fact that's the minor occasion of issue. And if we've got a way to enhance an area as well as still make the plowing conducive to good safety and increase the safety of access or egress, it just makes sense to go ahead and do this, now that we have a time to do it.
Yeah. Well, actually, John, and my issue is not so much a matter of snow or not snow. I think the DPW can figure that out, and it's not going to be a worse-case scenario than last winter, we hope. At least not for another 100 years. My only issue about putting off paving it is, I think eventually, yeah, it gets paved, it gets in there as part of the overall development of this park. But, we have things that need to be sorted out in terms of what the actual plan is. Where does an actual sign go? What sort of landscaping do we have? All those
Where
sorts
should
of things.
parking be placed
Where should parking
permanently?
be placed? All of those issues. So deferring action now, I mean, if we pave it this year, we pave it next year. It's been unpaved for however many years. Deferring action now and then coming back with a full, complete plan of, okay, here's where we would like to see parking. Here's where we'd like to see this paved. Here's where the mailboxes will actually go. Here's where a sign would be. Here's where open parking for people to use on holidays and weekends. All the things that have been talked about overall in terms of what we want to see in that park. Let's have it all as part of one plan and just do it as part of one action instead of piecemeal saying, well, we've got a paving contract up, so maybe we can pave this part, and we've got some gravel here, so maybe we can do this part. I just want to make sure we proceed there with a plan, with a vision, and with the ability to say, hey, we got all the input in, we looked at what we have, this made sense, this didn't make sense, and we do it as a whole instead of coming at it piecemeal and arguing over each piece.
Oh, I don't disagree. I think then what we should do is step forward and recognize that the Parks and Rec Department has in fact put that plan together, that this council has seen that plan, has made budgetary approval of that over a 5-year period, including concession plans and other items. And I think what we need to do then is make a motion, if we drop this motion, is go back to Park and Rec, recognize the work that they've done, and set a date certain for that meeting to occur probably no later, I would think, since this is a good topic, than I don't know, a month from now or sometime to get this wrapped up, rather than continuing to push this down the hill as we tend to do all of the time, these kind of issues. Issues that are difficult among our residents as well as difficult among our elected.
Yeah, I mean,
Politic here.
continued uncertainty there creates
Absolutely.
continued tension.
So,
I don't want to put a date on it, but I think I'd like to maybe go back, see if Pam can go back to Park and Rec. We can go back with the Park Capital Outlay Committee. Get a date from them when they think they would be ready to hold a hearing.
Mr. President, without dragging this on any further, the motion was very simple. I'm not against paving. But I think it doesn't, like you said, why pave now and fund like, oh, you know, we shouldn't have paved there, we should have moved it over here, and let's add a patch here and do this. I mean, what's, next spring, big deal.
My comment is, gee, I want to say, without sounding too much like a smart aleck, I can say, like, gee, I thought we had a vision. I thought Parks and Rec had this discussion. We've got capital budgets, we've done this. The only thing that's not moving forward is the only thing that's not happening is our willingness to move this project forward, frankly. Okay, you make some good points, John. Maybe we should have a more comprehensive, definitive plan about it before we move forward in piecemeal. You know, that makes sense to me. But if that's the case, then let's put a date certain on it. You know, John's right. Don't push this thing down the road yet again. That's not fair to the village. It's not fair to the people that are going to use that park, and that's what it is, frankly. It's not fair to the Parks Rec that have done their homework.
I didn't infer that. I just said that if now, well, we just decided that we're gonna move a mailbox, that was just done today, so there was something that wasn't even thought of. My point is that it seems like, oh, if we get this done, then we'll do this done. It sounds like some of the residents aren't sure that what's going on, the ones that live there, that'll look at it every day. And the bottom line is, the one thing I don't see is I don't see it clamoring for the public for 4 or 5 pocket parks throughout the community. We got a beautiful park down here. We built a bridge so people could get to it. Now we're building another park over here that's been used for years. I've never seen anybody get chased out of there. I've been there 41 years. People use that all the time. Now something else happened. Now we're talking about buying property and bulldozering homes and putting a park in the middle of a neighborhood. All I can say is that's fine, as long as the people that live there and are adjacent to it are happy and that's what they want. Don't put a park in there because Park and Rec wants it. Put it in there because the people want Park and Rec to do it. Very simple.
The people, quote unquote, and I agree with you, but the people are not the people that happen to live on that. You know, the demographics change every 5 years around here. You know, what could be a couple of empty nesters could be newborns in another year. You
All
know,
I'm saying is make sure we get input from the residents that are affected.
That's the whole point. All the residents are affected. I mean, just because you live adjacent to the park doesn't mean you're not. You don't have a stake in what's going on at that park or an interest in developing that park. You know, the attitude is like, hey, listen, they're right there. It's like their private little park, and we're trying to impede. That's the feel of this discussion. We're trying to like impede on their little private domain of this land.
And Ron, I hope that's not the sense of the discussion of what I'm saying that you're taking
Ron,
away
you're
from
way
that,
off.
because
I don't think he is. I don't think he's way off.
I don't believe I am either, John. And you know, your point about bringing in more voices, you know, getting a master plan,
Good idea.
that makes sense. You know, as opposed to doing it peaceful, that makes sense to me. But this is not something that discussion that just came up. This has been on the table, ready to go for a long time. And for us to sit back and go, well, you know, it's like another delay tech. It feels that way to me. Like we're just afraid to make a move. Okay, you want to push it back again? Fine. Let's put a date certain on it as a compromise. Let's put it on the top of Parks and Rec's list so we can put it on the top of our list at the next meeting and get it done.
I'm happy to put a date on having a public hearing. I think we should have a public hearing. When we have a public hearing, we should make sure we're prepared for it so that we've got things that are there. What I'm saying in terms of not having something for this site is, and I was not at the last Park and Rec Capital Improvement Committee, but I have been attending just as a resident watching there is, we've got a couple of different proposals for what could happen in there with landscaping. I don't think we have a complete one yet. We don't yet have a site plan for that specific site. There are options there. I would like public input, both from residents who live immediately adjacent and residents who live around the village on that proposal. It's a park development. I think we should get as much public input as possible, but I'm not saying that to delay doing anything about that, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't do anything if the only people, if everybody lives right next to it, doesn't want to do anything, and everybody else wants to do something. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying I want, and we've talked about this all along as part of this neighborhood park program. If we're going to go forward with it, we want to hold a public hearing. We want to make sure we get as much neighborhood input as possible, and I think we have reached that point, because otherwise we're going to end up back here having this same discussion every time an issue comes up about this park. In terms of paving, yeah, we've got a unit price paving thing in front of us right now. It's a convenient time. We're going to bid out another paving project in the spring. We'll bid out another paving project next fall. We bid those all the time. If there's going to be parking, if there's not going to be parking, probably we'll have to bid that as part of it. I'm just saying, let's not get wrapped up over this one little area. Let's come forward, let's get all the input we need, come forward with a vision, and then address it as a whole. That's all I'm saying.
The question I have, John, if you will, in order to be prepared from a park and rec standpoint of view for a public hearing, you're gonna want sketches, you're gonna want a plan, and the previous committees, meeting that I was at, it's gonna take money. And so are we willing to have a budget, for planning? How much detail is needed for this meeting that either the committee needs to do work on, or Park and Rec Committee himself need to do in order to present? I mean, do we need a full-blown sketch like for the building renovations? Do we need just hand sketches? Do we need professional PowerPoints? I mean, Photoshop? I mean, how much information are we tasked to? And that'll depend on when the meeting's gonna be held, because Sharon did, ran some numbers, when we first got together, we did a bunch of brainstorming, and she came back with some quotes, and some of them, it costs money.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing to add. This presentation or discussion on the island as an association did include sketches. And the reason we were at sketches, it was from our current landscaper, who does a good job around our signs and et cetera. And it made a lot of sense. Of course, she also included graveling areas where she felt there should be parking designated.
But it was sketches, it wasn't.
Well, yes,
I
but we
think we can have a
decided
public hearing with sketches and throw a map up there and ask everybody to walk over and look at the park
The more
first.
information, the better.
The more we have, the better, but I don't think we need to proceed to full-blown landscaping, architectural
Yeah.
plans for everything, because I don't think we want to go down the cost of doing all of that until we get whatever public input we get on the proposal, on the options, and then we can proceed. And it's very hard to proceed down that more expensive route until you've got it, and you can't have that public buy-in, you can't do it until you actually have a public hearing. That's why we have public hearings.
Yeah, no, I was just inquiring how much information you wanted, from Park and Rec or from the committee, prior to having this. I wasn't saying you had to have this or you had to have that. I was trying to look at what our assignment was. What do you expect?
I think, well, first of all, we've talked about having a public hearing. Makes sense to me actually to have council hold the public hearing, maybe as a joint session with Park and Rec. Just in terms of the setup, doing it all, getting it as an on-the-record public hearing. I think if we get what displays we have, we come forward with it, we sit up here, we talk about the overall program, we show what there is, we talk about maps, and we ask for public input. I mean, that's what a public hearing is, we ask for public input, and then we've got that input and we can make decisions.
Could we do that on our work session date of the 24th of this month?
I
don't think you'd have time.
Yeah.
I don't think we'd have time to do it. We could potentially do it.
I thought we had the sketches done from your, the architect.
We did, but I think the 24th of this month is somewhat aligned to aeration.
Yeah, we've
Because,
already got something set with Waterworks. And I want to make sure if we're going to have a public hearing that we do enough public notice to people so that they have a chance to show up.
So would that be the work session of the following one?
October work session, I'm happy to do it then.
And just for a clarification, because of stepping this out, since we're talking about something that is going to have impact village-wide, that maybe the Park Capital Improvement Committee really should start to delineate the areas that where we're thinking of putting parks, and let's get the public to buy into the concept of, do we want parks here and do we want parks there? And then we can come back away and say, yeah, we only see 3 or 4 that they want and compared to the 5 we might be planning, and then we can then fold down and talk about parks individually. Would that make more sense?
No, I think what would make sense is to have a public hearing. To present at that public hearing, as we often do, some information to everybody, so at least we're all starting from the same starting point. What's the overall view of the neighborhood park program? Where do we think are potential locations, Oak Island being the first, and then to proceed to specific input on the proposed development or lack thereof for the Oak Island Park, to get specific public input on that item. If people want to come in and talk about the neighborhood parks overall, other potential locations, I think that's good too. I think we should take all of that input, everything we can get, but really what I want to do is be sure, and this is what we've said all along when we've talked about doing neighborhood parks, that we hold a public hearing first and we get neighborhood input.
Yeah, we did.
Just do it. Don't disagree with that.
Just do it. So let me go back to our original motion from Ed, which is not to pave the circle at this point. Do we have more discussion of that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Motion carries. So we won't do that as part of the fall paving that we're doing. I would entertain a motion to set a public hearing on neighborhood parks and the proposed, Oak Island Neighborhood Park for whatever that October date is, October 22nd? Or October 22nd.
Calendar.
Well, that is the fourth Wednesday of the month.
Yeah.
So that should give us.
There's no way to get it in front of our next meeting.
I don't think there's a practical way to do that.
You know,
I think let's make sure we've got time to talk with Park and Rec about what we'd like to do. Talk with the Capital Improvement Committee to talk about what they've got in terms of what we can do. Get our visual aids together, get an agenda together, do some reasonable publicity for it so that people can know it, and then we just do it then.
Okay, I make a motion that we have the hearing on the 10/22 of this year, which is the fourth Wednesday of October.
We have a public hearing, excuse me. I was gonna agree, I was gonna second the motion, but with Parks and Rec, is that what the proposal would be? To have it with the joint session with Parks and Rec as a public hearing?
Well,
So they can be there for their input? How do we do that?
Ron's was to make it a public hearing. I think I would like to make it a council session, but to invite Park and Rec.
Okay, that's whatever's
I don't know.
best. with
I
you.
agree with John on that, because if it gets like
That's
what's
fine.
with the water, it becomes more or less a large meeting and not a hearing per se.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
But they should be involved, and we should be aware of what their views are prior to that hearing.
Yeah, and I for sure want to involve them as much as possible. I just think organizationally, administratively, it's just easier for us as council to hold a public hearing.
I agree with that. I do.
So, motion to hold a public for council to hold a public hearing on October 22nd for neighborhood parks and the proposed Oak Island Park. So, motion Cumbo, second
Second
Nagy.
it.
Further discussion on that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, thanks, everybody. I know that was a lengthy and spirited discussion, but it's an important issue. And,
Huh? Wasn't that the fish?
and we do need to get there. So.
Long-term plan. Fish come and go.
Okay, that brings us to second call to the public, opportunity for citizens to address the council regarding any and all village business.
All that.
Sounded like it.
Oh, get it together.
Oop, oh. There we go.
Microphone.
Oh, yeah, let's get Craig a
Microphone.
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 Hi, Craig Minnelletti, 1641 Del Monte. I'm on the ZBA board with Pat. I am the chairperson, and I'm noticing some things through the village that I would like to see if council as well as Jennifer could give us some guidance on. Lakefront properties are not allowed to have fences, as we all know. What I'm noticing, not only driving around the lake, but within my current neighborhood, I think people are trying to skirt around that issue by planting a variety of trees, bushes, hedges, things to that nature, that they're using the terminology of light and space and open air. But as we all know, trees and bushes and shrubs grow together eventually. John, you and I have talked about a couple properties. I'm not pointing out anyone specifically. We do get cases that come in front of us for hedges and for fencing and things like that, especially for lakefront owners. Again, one of the things I noticed is we approved a house that had burned down, I believe, about 1.5 years ago. And the lady rebuilt her home, and I noticed, being on the boat about 1.5 weeks ago, there are now rows of arborvitaes that somehow have appeared between her and her neighbor. And we all know how tall arborvitaes can get. I guess I was under the assumption that that kind of stuff wasn't allowed, and being that we've heard cases in the past and have denied people on certain items, I would just like to see if we can get clarification from council as well as maybe from Jennifer, because we do hear these cases for the future. And, just for my own personal sanity of what is allowed, what's not allowed, because code enforcement has looked at a few of these, and apparently it seems to be okay. So I'm confused as the chair of ZBA of what the actual rules are. So I was just wondering if we could talk about that.
Okay. And at this point,
I can look at the issue, I just need more information.
yeah, you'll need more. I know this came up during the original fence ordinance, or, subsequent fence ordinances. Every time it comes up with fence ordinance, I know the current fence ordinance is designed to not permit these hedgerows to go up as pseudo fences.
Correct.
But I've been walking around and I've seen a lot more that seem to be going that direction as well. So this seems to me like a good issue to have the attorney take a look at, maybe have planning take a
I
look at.
thought it was addressed in the fence ordinance.
Well, not to interrupt you guys, but I think what they're doing is they're planting them now. They seem to be planting these trees and bushes, again, spaced out to a point where if you looked at it today, there's a loophole. We all know things grow out, things grow wider. Eventually, and there's one house specifically that I'm not going to mention, it's close to me, they have planted probably 35 or 40 trees on their property. And again, that's fine. They can plant whatever they want on their property, but we do have ordinances in regards to what can be planted on the lake and what can't be planted on the lake. So, that being said, and then I saw a few of these other ones, and I just think that maybe people are trying to use a loophole. And recently, we had somebody actually have a special needs child that wanted to put up a fence across their property on the lake, and they were told they couldn't do that. I mean, if anyone had a reason to do a fence, I think they had a legitimate reason, and they just weren't. We didn't hear the case because they never came in front of us, but they were told that that's just not allowed, so they took the fence down. So I just definitely think it's something that we should look at, because I think that people are trying to skirt around the issue and use loopholes.
And after he brought this up, I looked at a few, and I think they are really getting to the point of working around the intent of that ordinance when it was done. So, and I remember at the time that it happened, said, well, let's look at that, it's pretty good, but I'm wondering if maybe this would be a good one to kick back over to planning.
Okay.
Plus have the attorney look at it from a legal perspective? Or do we need?
I mean, is it?
I thought it was clarified enough.
I think Brian, I think the ordinance is clear enough, but I think, as Mr. Minelli said, some of it, maybe there's some loopholes that people are
I think
getting
the
around. I mean, like an
ordinance needs some level of
arborvitae,
revision.
if they plant them 3 foot apart, but they trim them to the height, what they don't grow up, they grow this way, and then all of a sudden you get a fence.
I agree.
Okay.
I believe that was what we had in the intent of the fence ordinance, was that your plantings couldn't be continuous
Right.
and construed as a fence.
Mhm.
So I guess at that point, maybe we need to look at spacing or something on it,
Or maybe this is an issue of, we then have to come back and, sort of later enforce once somebody lets it grow into a fence. I don't know the answer, and,
I don't know either at this point.
but
The intent was not to.
the intent was clearly not
have
to
that
allow
allowed.
that. Yeah. And so that's, I think we need to address it.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, thank you, Craig.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate your time.
Anybody else, second call to the public? Cliff.
Cliff Yance, 1203 Mallow. Is it my understanding, reading item K, that that's going after or with item 18?
So, yeah, so we will do pretty much the whole meeting up until, we'll do our comments, then we'll adjourn for the closed session,
We'll come back and adjourn.
come back in, whatever we do at that point we'll do, and then we'll call
Okay,
it.
so the order of the agenda is going to be basically J and then L, and then you'll do K at 18.
And actually, to be clear, J and K were approved as part of the consent agenda. We have set topics for 2014 work session, joint meeting with Water Management Board as L, and then we're pretty much into updates and comments.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else? Seeing none, I will close the second call to the public, and we will move on to item L, set topics for 2014 work session. I believe we would like to have a joint meeting with Water Management Board. So that would be on 9, what is it, 24?
It's the 24th. Yes.
Do I hear a motion to set the September 2014 work session as a joint meeting with the Water Management Board on September 24th at 7 PM?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Motion Cumbo, second Scott.
And the purpose of this joint session with the Water Management Board is?
It's for aeration.
Yeah, as for aeration, there has been an agenda put together by Cliff in coordination with Sharon and myself, a very good agenda. We're going to bring in the installers of the aeration equipment. We're going to bring in our limnologist. I think that's pretty well
Yeah,
set.
yes,
It's just
they're
the topic of
available.
their address, and discussed what aeration is and is not, what the expectation should be and not, and also how it's integrated to the overall plan of management of the quality of the lake. So it's going to be open discussion.
I guess but it's gonna be, since it's now up and running, it's still gonna be too early to give any kind of status report as far as if they see any,
Change?
yeah.
Yeah,
That's the way to put it.
I think it was presented here a while back by our limnologist, certainly the Water Board knows that they are out, I think, today, or were they out yesterday? I'm trying to remember when Paul sent that.
It was yesterday.
Was it
Yeah,
yesterday, Cliff? Yeah.
Yes, doing the sampling.
Doing the sampling and year-end report preparation, and particularly doing what was necessary in terms of sampling and measurements for the DEQ. The DEQ now has standards for aeration that they've set statewide. And part of that is actually, I was on the boat when they did this last time, they run a depth finder, and that depth finder is recorded, and that recording is then taken up into a company who puts it into satellite, so that those recordings will be measuring the change in the depth as well as the foliage or weed content of the lake through satellite. So that's a new piece of equipment that
Cool.
Progressive A&E bought. So they're on top of it, and the long and the short of the answer is it's too early.
That's why I figured
It's
that, but I
too
just.
early. I mean, we really haven't had the system
Yes, thanks to
fully
the DEQ,
operating.
we got a pretty late start on
Yeah,
this.
day in and day out, it hasn't been really fully operating until this week. I think that's a fair statement.
Last week, I think
Yeah, last
all of
week.
it was up and
Yeah,
running, yes.
Yeah. And I
Let's
think
look at
somebody
questions
shut
about
them
the
down
bubbles
or
from
something.
the-
Did we ever find out what happened?
I think something came unhooked or something,
Something
but,
came unhooked.
but they're gonna come out once a week now and make sure
Are they?
they're,
Oh, good.
they're running well.
Dave will be doing that.
Yes.
But that's what the reason for the meeting is.
Okay, thank you.
Having said that, I think if anybody has a lake question, we're gonna have our lake consultant
guys
there.
here.
If you've got something, especially if you can hand it along in advance to him, we can get an answer for you.
Sounds good.
All right, we have a motion. I don't think we had a vote on it yet. We didn't have a motion?
Yeah, we do.
Right, we didn't have a vote, yeah. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, pending business. Can Penn?
One question, Mr. President, about pending business, the electronic meeting communication. I just would like to see if there's a better way that when we review items on the agenda and have letters, attachments, or whatever, that to be able to let the public, the audience, et cetera, see them instead of, like we have correspondence and you say, let's just file it, but either read them or try to get some method of communication, whether it's electronic or whatever, to the members of the public and the people in the audience. I mean, on the internet, just so they know what we're talking about. Because I know this has been raised before, and whether that's some kind of electronic form of communication, or we have a big screen TV up here, and we broadcast it up there so everybody can read it or something. But I just think a better way to communicate with the people in the audience and the people in physical audience and on the internet of what we're doing up here.
It's a fair point. I know it can be pretty
It
incomprehensible.
is
from
like,
the other
what's
side of
when
the
I
table.
used to sit out there, it's like, what are you talking about? Okay, I just think it'd be better communication with our audience, with our residents.
I agree with that.
I do too.
No, I don't know how we can.
I don't have a solution for you.
No, I'm not saying we have a solution, but I
But yeah, no, I
think we
think-
oughta,
I think
it's
I think
pending,
it's
but I
something
think
we
we
should
need to look at it and talk about it a little bit more.
And maybe something as simple as just projecting it on a screen.
Something.
To read.
Projecting up on screen or something, yeah.
Just something to give the better, so the audience and our residents know more what we're talking about. Okay, thank you.
All right. Item 15, update from Captain Ellsworth. All right. Update from the treasurer.
And nothing from me, Mr. President, thanks.
Update from the administrator.
We've already talked about the aerators, and they are all up and running in the Penny Lake area. The lake treatment will be tomorrow. It was either going to be today or tomorrow, but the rain today has pushed that back to tomorrow. The pathway along Glengarry is underway, and I mentioned we should probably be done with that by the end of next week and ready to pave. I'm hoping in October. I know Michelle said November, but I'm hoping October. Also, I have tickets for the Taste of the Lakes, which is next week, Thursday, September 18th. So if anybody wants to purchase the Taste of the Lakes tickets, I have them. And if you haven't been there, it's a youth assistance, Lakes Area Youth Assistance. And it's a really good event at the Edgewood Country Club from 5 to 8 p.m. So if you're interested, I have tickets. Yep.
Cheaper now. More
Yeah,
expensive
at the door, it's more,
$5
yes.
more, so.
Yep.
You give me your
That's
tickets
all.
since you're not gonna be here.
All right. Council comments. Let's start with Kumbo.
I have nothing tonight, Mr. President.
Kaznicki.
Just short and sweet. Last Saturday was our village festival, and almost everybody showed up from the board, and I appreciate, the support. I appreciate all the hard work that Lynn and Lori did. They put in hours and hours and hours of work for that. And even Sig joined in on, even before he was official. So I appreciate all the work that everybody on the board did, the Park and Rec Board, as well as, the council itself. It turned out to be a beautiful day. The night before was horrible, so thank God it wasn't that day, but it was good. It was a lot of fun. Food was good, and the Kaya sliders were outstanding. So I think that was a really good ad, and I hope we can continue to keep them, every year. They were really, really good. And thanks to your wife. She was there early. Monique was there early and worked really hard and long, and thank you. It was fun.
Thank you.
I got no comments tonight, thank you.
John?
Commented enough through the meeting.
Yeah, me too.
Brian?
Pass.
Pass.
I just wanted to echo the comments and thanks to the Village Festival. It's a big undertaking for Park and Rec, takes a lot of effort. A whole lot of people put a lot of work into it, and it always makes me nervous, even though I usually just show up and attend and don't really do that much at all. Just on behalf of all of them about whether the weather's going to be good. So when we saw the weather come out aces for us, I was quite relieved. That's it. I would entertain a motion to adjourn to closed session.
So moved.
Motion Sikowitz, second
Whatever.
second Nagy, almost in complete synchronization. We already voted on that as part of the agenda. Let's get a roll call vote on that.
Medrum.
Yes.
Sinkwitz.
Yes.
McGee.
Yes.
Nagy.
Yep.
Bezeki.
Yes.
Cumbo.
Yep.
Scott.
Yes.
Motion carries. We are adjourned to closed session. Thank you, everybody. separate closes on parcels A and B, and to sign the closing docs on parcel B as discussed.
So moved.
Support.
Motion Nedrow, second Sinkowitz. Discussion? Roll call vote?
Combo?
Yes.
Kaznicki?
Yes.
Nagy?
Yep.
McGee?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Nedrow?
Yes.
Yes.
Sinkowitz?
Sink.
All right,
That's
I
how I
think
always
that's
write it.
all we've got. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Adjourn.
Motion Sinkowitz, second Nedrow, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thanks. Sorry to have it last, but.
No, it's kind of late.
That's,
I kind of figured that by the time they were the last ones left. Ah, okay.
Is that the other
And Pam.
legal team, or is that the
Pam, what do you want to talk about?
Okay.
Yeah, I want tickets.
billable?
Oh, you want tickets?